Going live. Yeah, we're live. So yeah, I thought might as well do a little bit more kind of debate review. I guess if there's any other like debates and stuff you guys want me to review, it'd be quite fun. To do it. Jesus, it's kicking off in here. Yeah, no, just I'm on Discord server, just looking at Yeah, no, it's just Tansky having a meltdown on Twitter. I'll have to come back to this at some point. Um, yeah, pretty embarrassing. But yeah, no. So yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay, is the sound coming through? Just let me know. I think it should be fine. I just want to check the volume levels as well.
They would know that there would have to be a general election.
Okay, cool. That's fine. So yeah, you can hear me okay? I just want to apologise for I don't know what's going on with my beard during this because it's only a year ago. Yeah, yeah, pretty much a year ago. I don't understand why I shaved. I think I must have. Did I mess up my mustache? Mess up my beard. I might have messed up my beard at this point. So yeah, hello Alistair. Um, so I think I must have messed up my beard, and I think that's why I cut it.
Every single Tory MP has said, yeah, there's gonna if we change leader, we'd have to go.
So yeah, just a couple minutes before we start. But yeah, nah, it looks like she's having a complete meltdown on Twitter. Should we have a look? Do you guys want to have a look? She blocked me on Twitter ages ago, but because of Elon's changes, you can now read it. Let's see, this is from 7 hours ago, so prolific on Twitter she is. I might do a separate video on her. Yeah, look, Tansky blocked. You can view posts, but you are blocked. So she blocked me because I referenced the fact that she took pictures of someone with an Adolf Hitler t-shirt. So let's see. People complain about me sneering at Corbyn when his supporters have subjected me to 5 years of abuse. So, obviously don't do this to people. Just posted. Yeah, I saw her video on it today. That's where I saw the original video. Yeah, she's right. She does get a lot of misogyny. Don't give people that sort of abuse. Just don't. Just don't. Like, it's just you're not gonna win. You're not gonna get anywhere doing this kind of stuff. Like, I call people washed all the time, but that's more a critique on their level of skill rather than anything else. But you have to be good to be washed, and there is the argument: were any of these people ever good? I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know. Good time to pull out the new coasters I bought a while ago at Comic-Con. But yeah, she talks about being the firstborn child of teen parents, grew up on benefits in poverty. I know firsthand how it feels. So there's no way I'd support any party if I genuinely thought they'd make the lives of the poor harder, even though they kept talking about fiscal rules. They kept talking about how they're going to be worse than the Tories when it came to benefits. But okay, it's fun, I guess. Talking about supporting any viable alternative. But you kept your whole goal was just to get the Tories out. Let's be honest. So I'd voted for any progressive party with a shot of replacing the Tories. But again, like you gave Labour the green light, and you kept saying to people, vote Labour, will push them left. Do you guys remember this? Because she was in my comment section in one of my videos talking about how she's going to push Labour to the left. Do you guys remember this? Where's that gone? Where's all this push Labour to the left stuff she was talking about? So like I don't, obviously don't give people abuse. Don't do that. We can critique their analysis. We can go on a policy, on a substance level, rather than anything else. Her talking about if your reaction to Labour's actions, I told you so, to those involved in tactical voting campaign to remove the Tories, you're only proving why people laugh at us on the left, frankly. But you literally like you guys own this. Like, you guys own this. You guys kept saying vote Labour will push them to the left, with zero control over. Lord have mercy on me. She's saying we have zero control over Labour policies, you utter donut. This is the person who said will push Labour to the left. It's crazy business. She kept saying they had a secret plan, all this stuff. I need to find those comments, guys. I need to find it. We'll do that in a separate video because I ain't got the time for that. for the purpose of the video and so I don't lose my sanity, we're just going to speed up this debate just a little bit. Just see if this is too fast.
Go to a general election.
I just don't think they'll do it. It's up to the Prime Minister, I think, as well, because of they changed. I think it was the Fixed Term Parliament Act. I think so. It's up to the Prime Minister to decide unless there's a vote of no confidence, which I can't imagine the Tories voting against their own leader and a vote of no confidence. That is wounding.
The last possible date you can have a general election is the 25th of January 2025. That is like the last possible date, and I do not see them eking it out to that last possible date. November is out permanently because...
Also, I don't know why I was so close to the camera as well, so you live and learn, guys.
That's going to clash with the US presidential elections.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be either from May probably till sometime September, I think, potentially, when there's going to be a window.
This obviously the fluff stuff of the areas we agree on.
From what we know, they've got a working group set up for policies, and they are trying to sort of watertight, making sure that these policies are bomb-proof as possible, so that if they do attack them, they know potentially what avenues attack them might go down, so they've got responses to that, and that they are sort of as solid as possible for any potential attacks. So, yeah, that'll be... like I say, we know they are taking this election very seriously at the moment.
I think the issue with that is they're going to be asked how you're going to grow the economy, and they're going to have very little answers for it. That's going to be one of them. Woo! Just, should we keep a counter on it each time I was right? Should we do that? Because again, I was correct on this point. They're going to be asked how you're going to grow the economy, and they're going to have very little answers for that. Now, can you guys fact check me a little bit in the comment section? Do you think I was right about this? Do you think I can smoke a victory pack on this one? I might have to. I think each time I get a point aged well, I might just have to smoke the pack on it. The major problems they run into, because you can't come up with bomb-proof policies, but then also argue we're going to grow the economy. When asked how, you say we're going to grow the economy. That's all they answer with.
They've got to invest at this point. There's no other way
how
forward.
How would they invest though, given the state of the fiscal rules? Given that they're being funny about the 28 billion, even though it's 20 billion in green funding. If you listen to not Sam Coates, is one of the other dudes on Sky, where he said it's actually 20 billion. So where are they going to get the money to invest from? What are they going to do because of the fiscal rules? That's the question.
I think they'll have to abandon them. I don't think they're necessarily going to keep them at all.
They're doing cuts to disability payments because of the fiscal rules, so it's another point to me, I guess.
So they're going to have to invest at some point. They will have to borrow, although how much they can borrow, given the fact that inflation is going to be the constant problem, because if you borrow, let's say, 10 billion and then inflation goes up, well, your 10 billion that you just borrowed just became 5 billion. Mm-hmm. So it does become very, very hard to borrow at this point. And that then leaves them only with one really option, which is to go to tax rises.
Another point I was right about, because they haven't announced any tax rises. They haven't announced any tax rises apart from the national insurance increase. They haven't announced any increases to VAT, national insurance for employees, and income tax.
I think I said on the Sunday roast, I think the era of us having low taxes in the UK.
But the thing is, we don't have low taxes in the UK. Not really. Not on certain people.
We really do. When you compare
it depends who you're talking about. It depends on what areas you're talking about. If you're talking about lower earners and middle earners, we actually have higher taxes. So I was speaking to someone in Sweden yesterday, in kind of preparation for this. She would make around £45,000 when you convert it from Swedish currency, right? Her tax rate would be around the same as what she pays in Sweden as in the UK. So it depends on whose tax rate you're talking. That's true. Big up to her, because that was a great conversation. About if you're talking about lower earners, middle earners, or higher earners. If you're talking about higher earners, they pay a lot less. We have much lower tax rate. The higher tax band is much lower in this country. In terms of capital gains, our capital gains taxes are a joke. France has a 60% income tax rate, I believe, as well. So big up socialist France, I guess. Because if you make your money through stocks and shares,
capital gains.
Sorry,
there's a ton of different taxes we can raise on this. There's not.
But the thing is, Labour have ruled out. Labour have ruled out tax rises across.
They're going to have to at some point.
But okay, is that another one for me, guys? Am I taking another one? I guess we should really wait for the budget. Maybe there'll be a surprise in there. Maybe he can take a victory lap. But is that another one? ruled it out.
It's just
that's
logical.
But then
it doesn't matter if you said, "Oh, they've
when
ruled
they
them
break
out."
that
Because
manifesto
they've
pledge,
changed
the
their
media will
mind a
come after
couple of
them.
times on these things.
If they break their manifesto promises, the media are going to come straight after them, and so the
Doesn't
whole
matter.
idea of bomb-proofing stuff won't work.
The Tories have broken their manifesto promises.
Yeah, but the media haven't said shit about it because that's how the media are.
They're going to say shit about doing this thing.
And so the whole idea of bomb-proofing stuff won't work.
The Tories have broken their manifesto promises.
Yeah, but the media haven't said shit about it because that's how the media are.
They're going to say shit about doing these things to Labour then.
No, they won't though, because the media doesn't work like that. Otherwise, Labour would be able to push through. Would Labour actually be able to talk about policies they care about, like not having the fiscal rules? If Labour weren't concerned about how the media portray them, they would not be talking about fiscal rules and BS economics.
From 1992. The whole reason they are doing this is because of 1992. 1992, everyone was going, John Major is going to lose. He's going to walk into an absolute electoral oblivion. Neil Kinnock is going to be the Prime Minister. We are going to be under a Labour government. And Neil Kinnock absolutely want that general election. He came out with all these...
So basically, that was a narrative going into it, but the polls were quite close going into that election. So again, this is complete nonsense. I think I do mention that in this bit.
Plans that didn't work out, that the Tories absolutely made mincemeat of, and they came...
As bad as this camera angle is for me, you can see me like fact checking. Anytime I'm looking to the left side of the screen, I'm probably fact checking.
Out with a shock victory and a shock win. Labour were that arrogant about it. They were right up to a week before.
The polls were close though. The polls between
Labour
and Tories were close. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Graphical summary.
It was exactly the same.
Literally, I'm looking at it. I've got it on screen right now. My audience can see it. If you jump on my screen quick, you can see it. Look, the receipts, lads. The receipts. No worries, Alistair. I think you deserve a moderator badge. Look at that. Look at that. The Tories were ahead. It's pretty close though. It's pretty close. That's well within margin of error, especially as you're going into the election. 91, 92. They're very close. Labour had a slight lead, but not much.
But everyone was saying they're going to lose.
But it doesn't matter what everyone says. It doesn't matter what everyone says. The polls, I'm literally... So it's gone... Oops. Oh, no. I love that song, but no.
I think...
So it's gone to opinion. Let me see, where was I? Not going to do that shit. That's literally...
You just want to have an...
So when the Tories do it, it's playing the game.
Oh,
shit, we missed all the politician. I say, look, how are you going to grow the economy? What's your answer? Go.
That arrogant about it. They were right up to a week before.
The polls were close, though. The polls... my audience can see it. If you jump...
Be as fiscally responsible as possible.
So when they're asked how you going to grow the economy, what are Labour going to say?
Then they're going to have to increase taxes at somewhere.
So
they're going to have to probably borrow more as well.
So it's partly right because they did increase taxes on national insurance for employers, which no one really saw coming. But that's about it, and that's not that big an increase, in the grand scheme of the economy. I work in the media, right? So I say to you, you're a Labour politician. I say, look, how are you going to grow the economy? What's your answer? Go.
Well, currently we're going to have, we're going to build 1.5 million new homes. That's going to have a big. We're borrowing something over. Literally, right?
Get me. Me and Derbyshire could run the media game. Madge, we Scottish did say that they were all red Tories. That's why we call them libel. True facts.
I think 2.8 billion, something like that. For that, you've got NHS appointments.
The Labour Party are going to borrow £2.8 billion.
And to insure on this,
you're saying the Labour Party are going to borrow £2.8 billion
to do the taxes, to do maths.
The self-glazing is going to go crazy here, guys. Yeah, but I think I could do this journalism thing. I feel like this interview gig, I could do it. The self-glazing is going to go crazy though, guys. That's all I'm going to say.
All has to come from taxes somewhere.
Are you saying the Labour Party are going to borrow £2.8 billion to build new houses?
Yeah, they're going to have to borrow it from somewhere.
So is that a pledge a Labour MP has made recently?
No, not at the moment, because I suspect they're all very, very disciplined at the moment. They're all keeping very, very tight.
Where did you get the £2.8 billion figure from?
I don't know. I just poked it out of thin air.
The visible confusion on my face is great. Oh man, I wish I did more debates so I could do more reviews like this. Is great. Because this is exactly how I'd react now. He just pulled out of nowhere. It goes 2.8 billion to build, millions of homes or whatever, and I'm just like, okay, he's gone for the old Senator Armstrong move.
My sources that I made.
But then that's the point, though. You can't just say Labour are going to grow the economy by borrowing a lot of money
Exactly
to build
why
houses.
their messaging is so tight at the moment.
But that's the point, though, isn't it?
No?
If I ask you,
there's
if
no
they're
no
asked,
point arguing about a lot of this stuff until we really come out with a manifesto.
but that's the point. Though. If we look at what they've
But
said
right
so
now,
far,
I can look up a policy manifesto tracker, and
Please
I
do.
can see the pledges of what they've made of some of this stuff, and it does pretty much come down to they're going to have to either borrow or they're going to have to raise money.
but
And
they've said subject to fiscal rules. So unless they grow the economy, they're
What
not
are
going to be
those
able to borrow the
fiscal
money. That's what they've said.
What's
They're
the
not going
fiscal
to raise
rules?
taxes.
Okay, I should have had this to hand ready because I mentioned it about 50 times.
What's the
They're-
fiscal rule?
I'm assuming they're not going to borrow over 100% debt to GDP, but they're not very clear on what
How
the
do you know
fiscal rules
that? What's
are.
the
But
fiscal
everything they've said on is subject
What's
to
the fiscal
rules.
rules?
So this was my mistake here. I should have, if I knowing I'm going to mention the fiscal rules, right? I should have properly had Reeves' definition of the fiscal rules down.
Fiscal rules.
Rachel Reeves will have to explain that, but she said everything in borrowing is subject to fiscal rules. So
What's
I'm
that?
assuming she's saying that we're not going to borrow
Is
unless we grow the
borrowing
economy.
good for fiscal rules? It might be. Fits.
But that's the point, though. She's not very clear on it, and it looks very clear that everything they say when it comes to borrowing is the fiscal rules.
Might even be deliberately so.
It's possible, but the media can ask her about it, and if she keeps saying it's subject to fiscal rules and she can't answer what the fiscal rules are, then it's not going to make sense.
Doesn't matter until the manifesto comes out, and that's what we're waiting
Even though she was consistent about the fiscal rules months and months before a manifesto came out.
for. Until that, I think a lot of arguing about Labour policy is they've said a lot of stuff which is really good, like rewiring Britain, getting a lot of stuff rewiring Britain with the national energy grid, creating GB Energy is going to be very good as well.
Yeah, GB Energy, no one knows what's going on with that, but okay.
That's good, but you're going to have to at some point borrow, or you're going to have to sort of raise taxes somewhere.
And, they're really ruling out borrowing. And with taxes, again, not really doing that.
That's just the reality.
What they've said is they want to lower the government's debt as a proportion of GDP, lower than it was at the start. That's according to Labour's fiscal credibility rule. So they want to lower our debt to GDP. So how are they going to achieve that?
Grow the economy. That's just how you do it.
Again, how are they going to grow the economy? That's the question.
Borrow. Potentially, it does look like they are going to do.
Said they're not going to borrow because of the debt to GDP ratio.
borrow
How
and
can
sort
they
this
borrow
out.
money? How can they borrow money if they say they want to lower our debt to GDP ratio?
Because
Doesn't make sense.
you are married to this idea of they can't break fiscal rules, so Labour can do nothing.
I'm not married to these rules. Rachel Reeves is married to these rules because she keeps talking about them. Like this is so stupid. His argument here, right? He's saying, I keep mentioning the fiscal rules, and therefore I'm obsessed with them. But the person who's obsessed with the fiscal rules is the Labour ministers.
It's
Labour
literally what she
a lot
said.
of stuff.
It's what she said,
Officially,
though.
Labour should just go in and just spend no money at all and just do nothing. Is that what you
So
want?
that's a straw man. That's a really badly put together straw man because it's not what I've argued at all.
That's not what I was saying. That's what they are saying.
No, that's what you are saying.
That's what
you are saying.
If I
You are
say
saying, we're going to stick to these fiscal rules. They're
So
not.
they're gonna
because
break
they're
their pledges.
saying they're going to do all
They're
this
gonna-
stuff.
are
They've
you-
got
They're not going to stick to the fiscal rules. Okay.
to do
saying
this
they're
at
going to
some
break their
point or
pledges.
another.
Let's be honest now. So are you saying the Labour Party are lying to the British public and they're going to break their pledges on the fiscal rules?
They're not
that they've
lying. They're
stated
being
very
very
clearly?
smart about it.
It's not. That's a lie, though. When
It's
Boris
not
Johnson
lying,
said,
though.
when
It's
Boris
not
Johnson
lying,
said,
depends what
when
happens
Boris
in the
Johnson said
manifesto.
his deal would get Brexit done, was that a lie?
It's not lying if what?
Yeah.
Okay, but was he? Well, he's just been really smart about it.
But he
No?
did get Brexit done in a way. Just
Not
not,
really,
in the way that
considering
most
we haven't
people wanted.
started
It wasn't
infrastructure yet.
simply a lie. It just lied to a certain group of people. I do not mind if Labour lied and say, you know what, we're going to have to sort of
I mean,
tax more,
this-
we're going to have to borrow more.
This
I don't
article
mind.
in the FT
It gets
with
things
Rachel
done.
Reeves saying, "I will never spend what we cannot afford. I will introduce a new set of fiscal rules. These will apply
Never
to
spend
every
what we
decision.
cannot afford.
We will
What
not
does
borrow
that
to
mean?
fund
If you
day-to-day
can
spending.
you can-
We will reduce
can
debt
borrow-
as a share of the economy. I am
If you
clear.
can
These are
borrow,
non-negotiable."
So he's a right twat because he's talking over me, even though I'm clearly reading something. And so, I kind of wish. I think next time I do this, there will be a moderator involved.
These are
If you
Rachel
can
Reeves'
borrow
words.
£10 million and reduce the debt by growing the economy, can we afford that? Yeah.
But the problem is, though, she's going to increase our debt to GDP ratio in the short term when she's saying she won't do that. And so when she puts out
I
these
think
plans,
they'll
the media are
do.
going to
I
jump
think
all
they
over
will
it. And
do.
all you see is irresponsible Labour back again.
Doesn't
That's
matter.
the media headline. It's a straight lie.
Which is the media headline when they talk about what do you call it? When they talked about Labour potentially raising taxes again on employers. They kept saying, Labour better not come out with their begging bowl again and all that kind of stuff.
Can we just
Doesn't
accept that
matter.
it's a lie? Like, what are you
Doesn't
saying?
matter.
So when the Tories do it, it's playing the game, but when Labour do it, it's smart.
It's playing the game, and if they are playing the game,
So yeah, when the Tories do it, it's a lie. It needs to be called out. When Labour do it, playing the game, bro. I misworded that, but playing the game, bro.
it was playing smart.
So pulled out 2.8 billion out of nowhere. Okay, fine. But again, she's saying we will not borrow for day-to-day spending. So that's what the government are doing currently. So they're going to have to grow the economy by an extraordinary
So
amount
the
in the
reason
next
they have
5
to raise
years.
taxes somewhere then.
So, but they said they're not
So
going
they're
to
going to
increase
have to
taxes.
raise taxes.
They've literally said they're not going to increase taxes.
So they're going to have to raise taxes if they're not going to spend stuff for day-to-day on.
They just said they're not going to do it though.
I should have asked him which taxes are they going to increase. Well, Bowler Hatman just said shows he has zero principles. Even true.
They probably are going to have to do somewhere. You
So
can do a
they're
lot
lying
of stuff
about
by
tax
doing.
increases.
So what about the VAT on private schools?
That's
a
not an
tax.
increase in tax. That's a tax exemption. They're not. That's not an increase on tax though.
You get,
I will stand by this. I think I was being a little bit pedantic, but again, you're getting rid of a tax loophole rather than anything else. So I don't think I would call this a tax increase. I'll put it to you guys in the audience. Okay, I know you guys are gonna be biased towards me, but that's fine. No, I don't want to do that. That's the wrong button. Bear with, guys. Start poll. Is getting rid of a tax loophole a tax increase? Because I personally, for me, I would disagree.
Getting rid of a tax loophole. That's not raising taxes. That's a
if you
very
get rid of
different
a tax loophole and you are closing that, that means more tax will go into the exchequer.
Therefore, that will be raising money for in tax, but it won't be raising taxes, I would say.
They've allocated that for schools, right? That's what they've said.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will be good.
Okay, that's a
So
good
you
policy.
can do a lot of other things than just raise taxes. I think they will do a lot of stuff like that.
Like what? What else? What else could they do that on? They got the
I don't
non-dom
know.
thing.
I'll
The
wait for the
non-dom
manifesto.
thing. You got the non-dom tax
Which Labour have ruled out the getting rid of the non-dom tax status.
exemption, which they've allocated for schools. They've got the charitable status that you just mentioned, but they've said they're not going to raise taxes. So where are they going to get the money from?
I don't care. They'll get it from somewhere.
But literally, they've told you that they're not going to do that. So
They'll have to.
what?
Have they done much? The tax take will increase, but the level of tax remains the same. I'm understanding that as yes.
That is what
My version is I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm telling you what they have said. I'm telling you what they've been
Yeah,
very
and I'm
clear
saying
on.
they're probably
And
going to do
these are the
something
things
else.
they pushed
If
in
the manifesto
2015.
comes out,
These
that
are the-
may spell out where they're going to get all this money
So
from.
do you think their manifesto is going to be wildly different to the briefings that they've done over the last year? Do you
Yeah,
think their
I think so.
manifesto is going to say "fuck the fiscal rules"?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to LeBron it in the top bins? Like what
Do you think the manifesto could say "f the fiscal rules"? And he's like, yeah. That the amount of arrogance it would take to come up with a statement like that when they were what's it called, prepping the public for this nonsense.
do you think this is going to go then with their manifesto?
Yeah,
Or-
of course they don't talk about Labour. There's a reason they don't talk about Labour. It's because there's nothing good to say. There's nothing good to say about it.
I think it's going to go down quite well.
All they do is talk about the Tories, the reform, and America. That's it. They don't talk about Labour anymore. I've noticed.
To be honest,
Okay, what are they going to put in the manifesto? No fiscal rules.
probably
they gonna
they'll probably spin it in a way. Look, we are spending a lot more responsible than the concern.
I think if I describe the removal as a tax exemption as increasing taxes overall take as a percentage as GDP has gone up. So okay. I think it's removal as a tax exemption as increasing taxes. Would you say that's a tax increase though? Because if you hire a bunch of goons in HMRC and they start clamping down on tax evaders, right? And they start getting more tax money for the exchequer, have you increased taxes at that point, or have you just increased taxes as a percentage of GDP? Do you see what I'm saying? Do a 6 tax bans just like so. I'd be okay with doing more tax bans. I noticed Graham Partick Social in the morning focused on the US, yeah, but he had common sense law. That's what I mean. So, NJ, I will concede the point. I was being a bit pedantic. It is a debate after all. In what I'm watching here, but that's that's not a hill I'm going to die on. Let me put it that way.
Conservative government. That's all they have to really say,
So given that she said that,
and that's good. Or do you want the Tories to win?
No, I don't want
Because
the
that
Tories
is
to
where
win.
you-
Do you want the Tories to win? Here we go. There's another straw man. No, it's an ad hominem. This one isn't it? It's a personal attack.
going now? Do
No,
you want
it's
the Tories
literally
to win?
not where I'm going. I am telling
Yeah,
you.
it is.
This
Do you want
is
the
what.
Tories
See,
to
this
win
is this
at
is the
this
thing.
point?
This is
I'm
the
sorry,
accusation.
you want the
Right?
Tories
This
to
is
win.
this is one of the dumbest accusations, right? Because I'm telling you, Labour
No,
can
you-
change.
I-
They can change course
I-
now. They can change course now.
Yeah, it's not much money.
Stop saying dumb shit in the media like we will stop, we will not borrow day-to-day spending and somehow grow the economy magically despite not increasing taxes or increasing borrowing to invest. That's what I'm telling you. They can set the ground so they can grow the economy. So when the media say, "Oh no, look at Labour borrowing all this money," they're like, "Look, we've already told you we're going to borrow this money. We've told you where it's going to go, and we've told you how it's going to grow the economy."
1992, remember what
Okay, and he's going to just keep talking about 1992. One example. That's all he has.
Conservatives did in 1992.
Okay, 1992 was how long ago?
Quite a while ago.
Do you want me to
but
tell you how long ago
everyone
it
has
was?
brought this up.
Do you want me to tell you how long
Everyone
ago it
has
was?
brought this up as
5
an
years
example
later,
of why
I
Labour
was
are being
born,
careful.
I went
Yes,
to
because it's
school.
all they had to defend the stupidity of the Labour Party at that point. This is literally all they had.
I went to university and I graduated. That's how long ago 1992 was.
Yeah, and
Oh, and I started this YouTube channel, and I got almost 9k subs. So, yeah.
everyone is saying, if you look at everyone is saying this about this, that Labour are being careful because of that exact reason. You cannot just ignore 1992 and just say,
But
"Oh,
again,
it was just
no,
so
I'm
long
not.
ago."
I'm not saying for Labour to say, "Oh, we're going to spend billions of pounds. We're going to renationalise Royal Mail. We're going to renationalise water."
Well, they're going to renationalise rail by that. That's coming
But that's
next week.
free.
Apparently.
That one's no cost. That one's very minimal cost.
Yeah,
The
and-
Tories
Is they going to nationalise the rolling stock, as a certain YouTuber in the comment section would probably ask? And the answer is no.
Nationalising
imagine all
rail
the stuff
because
we
they
can
have
do. It
to.
doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, rail's free. That's fine. That's a good policy.
But it will cost
But
something
again,
because we're going to have to rebuy a lot of rolling stock.
They're not going to buy any rolling stock.
fine. You know, that's not
So,
expensive purchase.
suddenly that's fine. You can break fiscal rules for that then.
It's
I'm more than
not breaking the fiscal rules though, because again, it's very cheap to do, and therefore, as long as you stay under 100% debt to GDP ratio, like this, what dumb fuck here doesn't understand.
happy for them to break fiscal rules, but literally they have said this. I
Then
don't care
why
about
are we
fiscal rules.
arguing
I
about
don't give a
this?
shit.
Why are we arguing about this? If it's
Because
fine for
this
them
is
to
what
break
they've
fiscal
said.
rules,
This how stupid this guy is. He's like, well, I don't care about the fiscal rules. You don't care about the fiscal rules. It's like, our opinion doesn't matter for anything. It's all about what Rachel Reeves thinks and Keir Starmer thinks. And Keir Starmer those two are very much wedded to the fiscal rules. Like, that's what this idiot doesn't get. Like, he's like, why are we debating this dumb thing? It's like, because it's literally the most important thing the Chancellor keeps talking about.
said it's fine for them
This
to
is
break
what they've
fiscal
said.
rules.
So
I
imagine-
don't mind. Why are we
imagine, right?
arguing?
Politician tells
just
you
want to
X,
have an
right?
argument. It sounds
Politician-
like it.
No, politician has told you X thing. You're saying they're not going to do that shit. That's literally
You just
what
want to have
you're
an
telling your
argument at this point.
audience. No, I'm
You
telling
just
you.
want to have an
That's how
argument
stupid this guy is. Like, he's like, oh yeah, you just want an argument. You just want to argue over nonsense.
at this point
No,
because we've
my
just
days,
agreed.
bro,
I don't mind if
please
they break
listen
fiscal
to
rules.
what I'm
You've just
saying.
said you don't mind if they
Bro,
break
please.
fiscal rules.
Yes, I don't care. But they are saying they're not going to break the fiscal
Why are
rules.
we having an argument?
Oh,
For this?
Okay. Rachel Reeves has said she's not going to break her fiscal rules. I'm telling you, this is what she said. You're saying, oh, she ain't going to do that. And I'm like, no, it looks very much like she's going to do it. And you're like, nah.
I notice how I wasn't definitive in that statement either, because it's very possible she could have broken it, or she could have massively changed the definition. She changed it slightly. But again, you know, I think this is another point to me, guys.
She ain't going to do that, bro.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
when they
you're
get into
saying.
government, when they do all this, are you going to come forward and say, you know what, I'm sorry?
I'll say, look, this
I
is what they
apologise.
said. This is what they put in their manifesto. Cool, I was wrong. That's fine.
Right,
I want to be wrong because I don't. This is
Good.
bad
You
economics.
probably going to
I
prove a
want
lot
to
of
be
people
wrong.
wrong.
These economic
Gonna
policies
prove a lot of people wrong, huh?
are shit. They've been criticised by Stephanie Cohen. They've been criticised by other economists saying these policies are complete garbage. These economic theories are complete garbage that they're pushing.
Yeah.
They've been criticised by so many
They're
people.
going to have
but
to change. They're going to have
They
to
don't
change
have
a
to
lot of
change.
stuff.
They don't have to
Reality
change.
is going to come knocking.
Oh, reality. Hello, reality. We're looking for Rachel Reeves. Rachel's not home, guy.
They
Then why
cannot
can't they
avoid
see the reality
fact
now
that they
then?
will have
They
to
could-
raise taxes. They
they
will
could
have to
set
do
the
a
ground.
lot of things to do this.
They could set the ground very easily for a lot of these promises. Instead, when they're asked about the 28 billion, they're like, "Oh, borrow 28 billion, bro. No, me. I ain't gonna do that. No, that's
Yeah,
irresponsible,
and
bro."
because they're being very careful because of 1992, because
Like,
of what happened then with the
what do
Conservatives.
British public want? You know,
So they announced this policy the year before, and then they get it in the bin. And we know it wasn't down to being responsible. We know it was down to some lady in Davos who convinced that the private sector would do it for them.
all Labour have to say is, look, my man Rishi Sunak wasted 37 billion on test and trace, right? Wasted 10 billion pounds on PPE. What we're going to do is we're going to borrow money, we're going to invest that properly, and we will show you the results.
All
of the
Rishi
Labour
Sunak
government.
has to do come out. Look how much money Labour are going to waste. Do you want the
Look,
devil
sis,
that you
look how
know,
much you
or do you want
wasted.
to go with
Look how
chaos
much,
with
all
Keir
they have to say is,
Starmer?
look how much money you wasted, big boy. How much money did Michelle Moan make? Show us.
That's all they have to do. That's all they had to do in that situation. We're talking £32 billion. You know how many times what you could do with that money? And I'll go into detail about what you could do with that money. You could buy Manchester United Football Club. You could probably buy probably 3 or 4 top Premier League teams with that money combined. You could buy a state-of-the-art team as well. So, like, put into context what you could do with that money.
That's all they have to do is say, you're
and
irresponsible.
they've done
with
this
the finances.
every single time in
they
election.
haven't,
They did this to Jeremy Corbyn. They did this to Ed Miliband. They did it to Blair on a number of times.
The Tories
Did it work on Blair? No.
They didn't waste £37 billion on test and trace. They didn't waste all of this money on this stupid stuff. What Cameron did was austerity and privatisation of things like Royal Mail. We have not seen the scale of waste under Theresa May, under David Cameron. The scale of waste, the levels of interest rate rises, we have not seen that under any other Prime Minister apart from Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. They're the ones in the last 5 years. That's it. The landscape this isn't 2017 anymore. This isn't 2019 was so shit that Boris Johnson was like, yo, David Cameron, he's trash. Theresa May is trash. I'm a new conservative. I'm a new brand. I'm a right-wing populist. That's how bad the last decade was.
David Cameron would never promise 40 new hospitals. Theresa May would never have really promised 40 new hospitals. Boris Johnson was different. That's the one thing that these guys don't understand.
So the idea of austerity politics going to win over voters is simply just not there.
But they're not offering austerity.
They have literally. What do you think the fiscal rules
mean?
They
are doing a lot of investment.
Where's the investment? Is it in the room with us right now? Is that investment here with us?
Austerity politics is we are not going to spend any money whatsoever. We're going to cut back as far as we can. But you've got Labour saying we are going to invest massively in the national grid. We're going to invest massively into reducing crime and corruption. We're going to have an independent energy act. We're going to create R&D certainty. We're going to invest in roadmaps for car firms for like 10-year research funding. We're going to do, again, youth crime prevention. They're going to spend up to 100 million to provide support for young people.
100 million over how many young people? Where's that? Where is that money going to go? Is it going to go actually to the NHS, or would it go to donors?
Yeah. Okay. There's just so much here that they are going to have to spend money on. And when the rubber meets the road, they are going to have to spend money.
Has the rubber met the road, guys? Is it happened? We're talking, what, 2 budgets in? Almost 2 budgets in. Has anything happened?
You've just said it. I said it. I don't care. Again, if this stainless now gets them elected, I don't care what they do when they get.
You're literally praying that they're going to do these things when they get in government.
As NJ would say, your strategy is inshallah, brother.
Why does this matter? Why does this matter? Why does this matter so much?
First of all, they're damaging. when it comes to discussing economics, they're polluting the public. They're polluting the newsphere. That's what they're doing because these economics policies don't work for a start. Secondly, what happens when they go into power and say, "Look, we wanted to do all these great things, but our economy's screwed. I wanted to invest in these areas, but you're gonna have to give me more time. You're gonna have to elect."
This is what they're kind of saying. To be fair, with certain things, I think, no, we want to do these great policies. We just can't afford that right now.
Me again, so I can continue to grow the economy, so we can get these things done. That's it. That's what they're going to do. That's why this stuff matters.
Why is that bad if you get a ton of the good stuff as well?
Where's the good stuff? Where's this great stuff that we're talking about? Because 28 billion. Where are they going to get the money for the national grid?
Labour are going to fire more math teachers. They're going to sort of spend 1.1 billion.
Another beautiful straw man constructed by our friend here.
A year to get lower the NHS waiting list. That is going to be good. They're going to build 1.55 homes. They're going to build new towns.
How are they going to build the homes?
Building a new policing guarantee. They're going to sort of go after more water leaders. They're going to sort of do crime preventions. They're going to do a new auto strategy for UK car firms. They're going to invest into
a new auto strategy. The Tories have had an auto strategy as well. It's not worked.
Battery factories. They're going to do 10-year research funding. They're going to do R&D certainty for more research doing on here. They're going to do more clamp down on consultancies and corruption in not only sort of national things, so that means a lot of going after sort of stuff that happened during the pandemic. They're going to do the independent.
This is where you need a moderator because this guy is just waffling. He's just going on and on and on.
Energy Act. There's going to rewire Britain, which is going to sort of go more into reinvesting in the national grid. I can go on. They've even got an affordable housing pledge as well. New towns, Greenbelt review.
Affordable housing, which the government aren't going to put the money up for. So who's gonna make these houses affordable? Especially when they allowed housing associations to massively hike up the fees. They literally spent 100 million hiring consultants from KPMG to train civil servants on. Oh my! This is what I'm saying, guys. Like this is pretty much it. That point there.
Bro, please let me speak now. You've started off a whole list of things.
So when I start talking like that, that's when I'm really frustrated. That's a good sign of it.
Technical colleges, maintenance grants, the NHS new dental plan. Much stuff. They are going to have to get more stuff on this.
Again, like they've just stated,
The fiscal rules won't work. When you talk about the car
Yeah,
battery,
and I don't care.
Oh,
I
okay,
really...
Okay, I don't care. All of these great things that they're promising to do, but the money has to be there. I don't care.
so
don't
when
care.
they
I
say they
do
can't
not
afford it
care
because
when
the
they go
fiscal
into
rules, what
power
are you going
and
to
they
say?
have to.
So their funding in the October budget was only for like 5,000 houses. Yeah, but he doesn't care.
And they literally say we want to
this.
do these policies, but we can't because the fiscal rules. What's your answer going to be then?
I will probably say the same as Rachel Reeves lives, and then when you get in power,
So what happens
you
when they
can
get into
sort
power
of
and if they
start
don't do
to
these things? What are
change
you
your
going to say?
fiscal rules and start to say, oh well, this is within our fiscal rules.
Literally, so when
That's
if debt
all.
goes
That's,
over,
I think
if
why
debt
it's
goes
being so vague.
if debt goes over 100% debt to GDP ratio, and the fiscal rules are like what fiscal rules, and Rachel Reeves gets pieced up in the media because she's not that great an operator, what are you going to do then? Because I can honestly see a world where they don't do a lot of these policies that you're talking about.
We're going to
When
go
you
into
talk about car
100%
batteries,
debt
hold on,
anyway.
you spoke for a while, right? When you talk about building car battery plants, right? A lot of car manufacturers still won't set up shop here because they want access to the biggest market, which is the EU single market for a start.
We're probably going to have to
That's a huge
rejoin
one.
that.
All right, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when you talk about the 1.8
Just ice. It's ice in the fucking veins, guys. Ice in the fucking veins. This is prime Madge right here.
billion homes, right? Are Labour going to build those homes, or are they going to be built by developers? Because Labour have said there'll be no new money for new homes. Labour,
if you're going to
Rachel
sort of
Reeves
build
said
new
that.
council housing, you're going to sort of allocate those to council housing.
So
they are going to sort of be sort of, I think, changed the rules when we're doing this. If you've got a planning change in regulations, which Labour do need to sort of seriously address, then yeah, I think they're going to have to do that.
Because Rachel Reeves said there's going to be no taxpayer money allocated to these houses. So it's not the idea that Labour are going to build these houses, it's housing developers are going to build these houses. That's what she said. Unless you're calling Rachel Reeves a liar.
So there's a checkmate move right there from me.
I mean, unless you're calling Rachel Reeves a liar here, then that's fair. But the point is, she said on national TV, on Laura Kuenssberg's show, that Labour will not allocate money for these houses.
So you're going to have to get a lot of private investment then?
So private investment, so housing developers, the ones that have cooked the market originally, you're going to rely on these people who build
and if you change the rules so that you've got more strength over these private developers so that you can strong-arm them when they start to sort of break these rules.
Okay, are Labour going to do that?
Yeah, they've got planning reform changes.
So planning reform, their planning reforms are to build more on green fields. It's great, Okay. And I think Theresa May was trying to push legislation that if housing developers buy land, they have to start construction within a year or two or something like that.
Form changes, so that's
10-0 is crazy.
Building on the green belt. That's not building more sustainable housing, is it?
Yes, because that's where you're going to have to build them.
So you're saying they are going to do these things, but you're not offering any evidence of them saying they are going to do these things.
It's right here.
Okay, I think he might have me there because they are going to do more building on the greenfield. So, Alistair, I think we give him a point for that.
The Labour policy tracker.
Where
you can track all the
sustainable
housing
housing.
they've got.
Can you show the link? Because honestly, when it comes to sustainable housing, I've not seen much them talk greenbelt.
See.
So yeah, here you've got all these Labour policies here. Greenbelt review. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves suggested Labour will review Greenbelt reading rules in the Sunday Times.
Okay.
1.5 billion to clear the NHS backlog. It's all here.
Okay, so again, that's going to fall within fiscal rules. Where's the 1.8 billion houses you talked about, or the millions of houses, or whatever you were talking about?
1.5 million homes. Keir Starmer's maiden speech pledged 1.5 million homes at the next parliamentary session, assuming to match the old Tory $3 billion year pledge, generation of new towns, Handmaid's greater housing and planning powers, which is where you're talking about that.
I don't know. He went pretty personal. Yeah, build more on floodplains. Great idea.
It needs to be. Fast-track brownfield development sites, some blitz reforms, and accelerating planning decisions. Angela Rayner also pointed to the biggest boost of affordable housing in a generation.
Okay, that's fine.
So within that week, Rayner made that announcement. She was contradicted by Rachel Reeves. I remember that week very well.
Again, how are Labour going to ensure these houses are affordable, given that it's going to be built by private developers? That's the point.
That's where you've got the greater powers for the mayor of the planning.
The mayor?
Yeah.
My town doesn't have a mayor, not one that has any designated power. So unless they're going to give that power over to the councils.
Which we know Rachel Reeves doesn't believe in proper... What's the word? Proper devolution. That's it. She doesn't believe in proper devolution.
Give it the power to.
It literally doesn't say that, though, does it?
It's where it would go. It's where it would go.
Again,
it's where it would go, but it doesn't say that. So again, a non-answer.
It's not.
That's where it would go.
So when Labour say we need fiscal rules, all this stuff, and it's all written down, you're like, nah, that's bullshit. And then you just kind of make it up as you go. Okay.
No, I've said this. What are the fiscal rules?
So everything good so far has come from Angela Rayner's office. Yeah, I mean that's true to be fair, and they contradict her each time. When it came to workers' rights, I think they were briefing against her. She wanted to get rid of 0 hours contracts, and they said we're only getting rid of exploitative ones. Rental reforms, that's been delayed. Leaseholder reform has been delayed. So yeah, Rayner's the only one who actually briefed good stuff, and then they were like, nope.
You don't even know what they are. Rachel Reeves has been using this as a really good tactic of just saying, look, I'm going to say this has been in the fiscal rules.
Rachel Reeves has said, second, I will never spend what the country cannot afford. These rules will apply to every decision we make. We will not borrow to fund day-to-day spending. We will reduce the reason I kept hammering away at this point is because Reeves was consistent in it. Interview after interview about this thing where, pulling back on this should look really, really stupid because all the media would do is, you said this thing in this interview and just play the clips. That's all they would have to do. As a share of GDP, they will not borrow to spend day-to-day spending, which is literally what they're
talking about investing, not day-to-day spending.
What do you think? Right, if they can't afford day-to-day spending, where are they going to get the money for investment? If they're not even going to borrow for day-to-day spending, where do you think the investment money is going to come from?
They're going to have to sort of come from tax. They're going to have to do different things.
They're not going to raise taxes. They've just said that. We've gone over this.
Yeah, but I don't think. I think when the reality hits the road, they're going to have to do that.
This is a belief. Are you saying you don't think this is a belief?
So this is an old debate tactic. My one of my professors taught me at uni in terms of beliefs and things like that. So it's very hard to attack someone who says I believe something because you're attacking their personal thoughts. But the reason why he said I wanted him to lock down on I believe is to make it sound like it's more his opinion rather than a fact, and it's easier for me to break down.
I think it's not a belief. It's when reality hits the rubber on the road.
But are you guaranteeing that they're going to increase taxes? Then can you say I guarantee?
Probably will have to do.
I guarantee these things.
So that's a reference to a clip my friend always quotes about where he says I guarantee, and then the thing never happens.
Probably. So it's hope. So despite what she has said here in the FT, you're saying I hope these things will not happen.
Inshallah,
brother. Probably going to have to.
Probably going to have to. So it's possible. Maybe they do it, or maybe they turn around and say.
Is it a bad thing if they do that? Because you said it's not.
So is it a bad thing if they lie? I didn't realise, looking back at this, how frustrated he was getting visibly. There is some borrowing, but because the fiscal rules have shuttered, a lot of it, as gilt yields rose in January, shrinking fiscal headroom, they cut investment. Yeah, that's why they're looking at cuts in welfare, I think, as well, because all of that headroom she had is gone. Yeah, I didn't realise how frustrated he was getting during this thing. It's because I kind of block it out. I kind of block it. I've gotten quite good at blocking out that kind of stuff, when it happens. I get when I get annoyed, I start talking more street, or I just start trolling people.
Is this an issue?
Because this is literally what they're saying to us, and if the next 5 years are them continuing to say, we want to do these things, but we can't because of our fiscal rules, I'm going to be like,
okay, so then what? When what do you do? What do you do?
What do you do at that point? I don't know. That's up to you guys. You guys said, look, give Labour power, right? Give Labour power.
Yeah, and you know what? We're working within Labour to sort of
pressure them from the left. So
what are you doing?
At that point? It's not a question for me. I'm not the one.
So we're working on getting change. Well, we can see what kind of change they've got. He keeps. Let's see. We have a quick look at his channel, right? I put a link into his channel. No, I did not. If we have a look at his channel, right? Let's see what he's doing to affect change. I think
Rachel Reeves will...
Let's have a scout look, okay? So we're gonna have a look at Bowler Hatman's channel, right? So what's he doing to affect change? Let's see, videos. Something on Germany, a membership video on Russia. Write to your MP the art of being a polite pusher. So okay, that's one thing I guess affecting change. Something on the US. Something on the US. I don't know what that is. Something on the US and Russia, the Tories, shock, Trump, UK steel, Maganomics, so that's America, that's Russia. I guess you could argue, you couldn't even argue that's really about Labour. Reform, so what's he doing to affect change? He's talking about everything but the Labour Party. So, we can have a look at the other guys if you guys want, but ultimately, from what we can see here, he ain't talking about Labour. He ain't talking about changing them that much. He's afraid to do videos on Labour because there's nothing good. Yeah, there's nothing. Had my own share of trying to educate him over the EU that there was no rejoining, only joining the current rules and not the. Yeah, don't start me on that because we're gonna get to that later.
No, I'm working with Labour to affect change with different groups in Labour. What are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm making videos on my YouTube channel telling people what's going on. That's all.
So this is where he starts getting, hitting me with a personal attack. And I actually told my friends about this where I work. Because I feel like this was such a cheap shot, Like, there's a Vegeta clip where he's like, what kind of attack was that? My pride, something like that. And it's like, yeah, he tried to really shoot at my chest there. And so, what changes he managed to get? What changes he managed to achieve? Has he got the things he wanted? Has he got proportional representation? No. Has he got us to rejoin the single market like he keeps banging on about? No. What actual change has he managed to get in the Labour Party beyond looking like a prat?
Care about.
That's it. Oh wow!
I'm not here to change the world.
Oh, wow.
I'm not here to.
Like, bro, like if I was the goat himself, if I was like Yagami, if I was a freaking anime villain, sure, I would try and do something. I'm not that smart.
Big splash. So
then,
if you're coming out saying what are you doing to change things, then I don't see how that's a great argument.
If that's it, if that's all you've got to do to change things, and I don't think you're doing a lot. I think you're doing absolutely nothing.
Well, what have you achieved then? You have, bro.
This is it. This is the bit where I smoked him. To be honest, this is the bit where I realised this guy's a complete moron.
Labour people that are out there,
I'm more than
working
happy.
their ass off, trying to get Labour elected and trying to affect change within the Labour Party.
But again, if you see your job as a party activist, that's fine, because that's what you're saying, right? You're a party activist. You're there to get Labour elected, and you're there to get the policies you want. But then that's clouding your analysis on what's happening here. You're using your activist hat rather than your analyst hat, and you do your audience a disservice when you do that stuff. And that's
which is half the reason why I criticise these people, because I don't want their audience to be co-opted by a bunch of clowns. Like, this kind of talk that he does, and I noticed as well, and maybe if NJ's still here, she would have noticed it. You had a lot of pro-Labour goons coming into comment sections talking about how we're wrong and how we're Tory enablers and all this stuff, because they polluted the well. And they allowed people to spread that poison into other people's audiences. It's one of the key reasons why I keep going after these guys.
I care about my audience. I want to give them the best analysis that I can give based on the information I have, because I don't see my job as a party activist.
I'm not giving it a false analysis. I've told them many times. I think Labour's going to have to probably change these rules on this.
But again, based on what?
I think the whole fiscal rules is just a massive smokescreen. I think Rachel Reeves will probably say at some point, this is within the fiscal rules.
So this is a reference to my uncle, who I must have been at this time when he said to his friend, "Oh, have you gone back to the mosque? Have you finished talking to people, trying to get them to go to the speech that was going to happen there?" And the guy was like, "No, this is a deception of shaitan, so of the devil, effectively." And so that's what that was a reference to.
But again, that's based on hope. Nicholas,
and that's how you get more things done in politics.
If you go on my channel, you'll be able to see it on my stream. I'll leave this up. Let me know. I'll leave this up. But again, it's based on hope. It's not based on fact. It's not based in reality.
If you press present on StreamYard, you'll be able to see
this is us being stupid because we don't know how to use technology.
From you, boy. I see why I use it. This is not day-to-day that ability. These rules we.
You can fit so much in that. I think it's just going to be a very good smokescreen, because you can do all sorts and just say, well, that's in the fiscal rules. What?
I mean, no, she changed the definition of it and she got lit up in the media about it a little bit, and that was about it.
Just to stop Rachel Reeves saying that.
Again, literally, the government right now is borrowing for day-to-day spending, right? So again, how are you the problem is, if they want to grow the economy, how do you even stop day-to-day borrowing from day-to-day spending? Because we're in a deficit right now. So it doesn't make sense for you to even say they're gonna borrow to invest, when the government are literally at a point where they're borrowing just to keep the lights on.
And I think they'll be able to do more stuff. There's going to be so much they'll be able to actually do. It's going to be more than just this. And like I say, when the manifesto comes out, we'll probably be able to sort of see what they're going to actually do.
No, there was a lot in there. The manifesto was a lot of words, but not a lot of there's a lot of fluff, a lot of filler, I guess.
But until then, I'm very confident it's just a smokescreen.
She's literally set the stage as this, right? There we go. She's literally set the stage as this, right? Spent the last year or so talking about fiscal rules and all this stuff. If she goes away from that, then that doesn't make sense.
If someone's just brought up in the chat, if we can afford to borrow, then that's within the fiscal rules.
No, it's not, though, because she's saying she wants to stop day-to-day borrowing. She literally said
And also, borrowing is not within the rules because they've set a limit on it. That's how stupid this guy is. They've set a cap on how much you can borrow. That's if you go to the bar and they say, "Oh, you can borrow up to this much," it's like, "Cool, lads, it's unlimited. It's unlimited drinks." No, it's not.
Wants to stop day-to-day borrowing.
This is it. No, it's so vague. It's so vague. I think it's vague on.
They want to stop borrowing for day-to-day spending. Is very easy to understand. Normal government departmental spending. They want to stop borrowing to fund that. It's really easy. Oh, that's my old Uncle Ira t-shirt as well.
say I want to stop. So, say for example, I'm a person, right, who has to borrow to function to live, right? And I say to you, I want to stop doing that, right? It means I'm going to have to make cuts elsewhere.
You're talking about a person, not a government. That's a vastly different thing.
Okay, this one's kind of a mistake on my part for making this comparison. No, it's. Oh my.
Yes,
bro,
it is.
no.
A person is not a government.
Okay, so
you do not have a national debt.
In this case, my example.
You do not have a national debt.
Literally,
you do not have a national debt.
I should have said it as a business.
That features heavily in economist planning and
listen to what I'm saying to you.
So much.
If you say we're gonna stop, literally, they're saying we're gonna stop day-to-day borrowing for day-to-day spending, right? How do you stop that?
You might have to do some different things.
Such as?
You probably have to look at changing, sort of closing tax loopholes. You probably have to raise taxes.
Yeah, little bro does not even know what the fiscal even do. Like genuinely, like this was such a regret doing this debate, and it's been over a year, and I still kind of hold that regret. But looking back on this, I actually think I did a lot better than I thought I did, purely because I actually just didn't disconnect the call and just call him a fucking prick. Like genuinely.
This is in different areas. I think there's plenty of stuff to do. You could even actually said you can borrow. It's not within the fiscal rules.
But you can't borrow because you literally said we're going to stop borrowing for day-to-day spending. That's what she said.
I don't know that within fiscal rules. For spending. Within fiscal rules.
Yes, that's our fiscal rules. We want to borrow to stop.
Within fiscal rules.
We want to stop day-to-day spending.
It is a massive smokescreen. So that if
a massive smokescreen. This man he's just on a machine of hopium. I swear to God, fam, he must have the best. The plug he has must be insane. Must be constant supply of that.
Just says, oh no, this is well within the fiscal rules.
Let's be clear with the audience. It's a lie then. It's not a smokescreen. It's not a deception. It's a lie. Be honest. Be honest. It's a lie.
It's not a lie. It's more of a deception.
It's not a lie. It's more of a deception. A lie. When Boris Johnson said we'll get Brexit done,
it's clever politicking.
It's not clever.
That's what it is.
It's a straight up lie.
We're going to go. These are our fiscal rules, and then you can fit so much within saying that.
In 5 years' time, when they don't stop borrowing day-to-day spending, right? Again,
Well, it depends what's happening with those 5 years. What if within 5 years we are sitting in a far better economy and a much lower debt and a grown?
Doubt. Unlikely. Are you sure about that? It's only a lie if the Tories do it. Yeah, I think you said that as well during your review of this.
Economy.
Do you think within 5 years they can achieve that?
I think it's more than possible.
Has any country had a turnaround that quick?
I think they can set the tracks on that.
Okay, so he's kind of pulled back, and I think I'll call him on this. He's pulled back from, I think they can do it to, they can set the tracks to do it.
It's doable.
These are two different things, right?
It is
one
very,
is set
very
the tracks
doable.
for growth, and the other one is growth. So, do you think within 5 years we'll see a country that is not having a deficit, which I think a lot of G7 countries would be in deficit even now?
Yeah, well,
I think I think Ireland's a country that is in surplus. I don't know which countries are actually in surplus. Let's have a look. Wait, don't want to keep. No, this one's a free one. And obviously, there's budgets and surpluses. Like these aren't just the main goal isn't always to have a surplus. It just depends. Countries in surplus. Let's see which European countries are in surplus. Let's have a look. Okay, countries in Europe surplus. Trade surpluses. Budget. So let's have a look. So in 2023, which is obviously a while ago, right? You've got Denmark, Cyprus, Ireland, and Portugal, and other countries with. So you haven't got all of them. So none of these are G7 countries as well. So I think my point stands there. I think I'll count another one, Alistair, if you haven't counted it already, pal.
Deficit, but I don't think we'll be in deficit as much.
She won't achieve a goal of stopping borrowing day-to-day spending.
But we won't be in as much deficit. I mean, if they can make the country better than it is now, what's the problem?
This is all his kind of thing hinges on. It's all if it's better than it is now, therefore it's a win. That's all he has. Because I don't think it'll be that. I think there's so much more that they could do. I think
you are so doomer. You are so doomer about this.
I'm so doomer, guys. Would you say the doomer was correct, or was the overly optimistic man correct? Who's correct about the state of our economy right now? Do you think our economy is that much worse or better than it was last year,
or the year before.
Bro, this is the
You're
difference.
being
Yeah, was it
doomer
indeed?
about this. You're being so doomer.
You're hopped up on hopium. That's like me saying you live in the clouds. If you look outside, if you look way up there, right?
No, because everything is doom and gloom.
Yeah, you're living with the aliens, bro.
And if Labour don't do this, there's no plan.
There's
Yeah,
nothing. There's
just
nothing
continue
wrong
making
with being a
YouTube
realist.
videos.
There's nothing wrong about. I don't know why you're mocking someone doing YouTube videos. Literally, what you do.
That's a banger. Sorry, guys. I'm laughing at my own jokes here, but that's how funny I am at times. I was like, why are you mocking a guy doing YouTube videos? Literally what you do. Oh my god. Oh, what a banger. Oh, mate. I'm going to have to take my jumper off for that one. That was a banger.
Been a Labour activist.
I do far more than YouTube videos.
How long have you been a Labour activist?
I can walk away from this and I'll be fine.
How long have you been a Labour activist
What? 4 years? 2020, I joined.
4 years.
I've been involved.
Do you mind asking how old you are?
What? 34?
34. So you started being an activist when you were 30, right? So I am 27. I'm literally younger than you, and I have 2 years before I could have to even be a Labour activist to affect change like you have. And what have you achieved in those 4 years, aside from YouTube channel, which you've done fairly well with? What policy changes have you gone? Why have you changed anything?
Well, I'm part of Labour for PR. I've done a lot of campaigning for PR.
Have you? Is that in the manifesto?
So okay, this is cute.
So he's literally gone at me, right, with multiple personal attacks here, and the moment I fire back, it's this is cute, guy. You know, I see what you're doing. You got nothing, pal. You have less now than you had a year ago. To be honest, he has even less credibility now than he had last year.
This is a real cute thing that you're going to try and.
You attacked me on a personal level. Look, in the words of Michael Jordan, it became personal to me, right? You said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Look, I'm happy doing YouTube videos." And by the time I hit 30, maybe I'll be an activist as well. Maybe I'll find a party that I want to be part of. But
okay, so
Green Party, call me. You got about a year and a bit. Call me up.
Part of Labour for PR. I've got my local council to pass a provision for councils for supporting PR.
Okay.
I've done a lot of interaction with my local MP. I've done a lot with
they're going to back PR, little bro. Okay.
Region. I've helped to get Sheffield City regional mayors active. I've helped campaign for in this sort of Greater South Yorkshire Sheffield City region. I've helped a lot in South Yorkshire in and around these areas.
But
campaigning is a lot of hard work, and it's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of hard work. You lose far more often than you win. But when you win, you win big.
You're asking about what change have I achieved, and it sounds like you haven't got.
No, I'm asking what you've done.
Yeah, like I said, I've made YouTube videos. I started my channel probably about 4 years ago.
That really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't affect a lot of change. Even I will say my YouTube channel, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really affect a lot of change.
If you're talking about achievements, in the grand scheme of things, what have you achieved? Have you gotten PR? No. Is Labour going to follow?
So I'm very well equipped for these kind of stupid debates, right? Because this is literally the arguments me and my friend have all the time about random fictional characters. So this is not the argument you want to have with me. Let me put it that way.
Labour conference, voted on Labour conference.
And what did the members want? PR, right?
Yeah, they voted for it.
And what is it going to be part of the manifesto?
Don't know. We'll find out.
No.
The answer is no.
No is the answer because Labour don't believe.
We'll find out.
We'll
find out very soon. And if not, guess what, Madge? We'll do it again, and we'll do it again and again.
So you're gonna keep banging your head against the wall, pal.
Again and again.
Again,
you're talking about campaign. You put in hard work.
That's fine. Look, that's good. But you're talking about feats and achievements, and you don't have any. That's the point.
You can say all you want, but I've done a lot more work within campaigning for actually trying to bring about a change.
Yeah, you've done the work. That's fine. You're talking. These two different things.
You've failed harder than me. Is this what the argument he's going for? He has failed harder than I have. Is that a win, guys?
Right, and one of them, I'm not belittling. Campaigning, doing pressure groups, that's fine. You're accusing me of not having any achievements. You're saying in the grand scheme of things,
I said what you said. What change have you? I said what have you actually done?
Yeah, what have I done? I said
change.
I've made a YouTube channel and I inform my audience.
YouTube video. That's not a big achievement.
But again,
I know.
Where are your feats? You're out here acting like
doesn't really do a lot.
You're out here acting like you've done something. Like I'm just asking. What are your feats?
making a YouTube channel. I'm afraid, in the grand scheme of things, as much as we like to sort of have.
So again, he never really answered the question. What were his feats and achievements?
YouTube channels and talk about YouTube on politics.
then
A lot of us really do not do a lot on our YouTube channel that affects change. A lot of us go out and actually do stuff behind the scenes.
I'm trying to actually make change? You know, I'm more than happy just giving my audience the best analysis I can. That's what I want to do.
And I still do that to this day. I'm part time. I don't put out as much content as I did last year. I'm, you know, the only person better than me is probably someone in the comment section right now, if they're still here. That's about it.
Be in the media to talk about what's going on and say, look, this is what I think about these things. What do you think? Start a conversation about things.
Go
That's
work for the media then.
Literally, what do you think my YouTube channel is?
What a dumb fuck! Like what? So literally, that's all I do all day. Is what I do. Like when I come home, when I do YouTube videos, it's literally the media. That's what I think my YouTube channel is characterized as. It's news politics, but it's media. Like news is part of the media. Like bro, like.
Go join the newspaper. I've not a better effect.
Again, what do you think my channel is? What do you think it's there for? It's literally the reason I made it is because I thought, right, you know, I think I've got some interesting ideas.
You've got a journalist degree, or
no? I don't. I've got a politics degree. That's what I did my undergrad in.
Was he going to use the argument that he's got a degree and I don't? Like literally, I'm more qualified to do this than he is. If you want to go to qualifications, I'm way more qualified to do this.
So you're going to go join like a Spectator or the New Statesman, or you can start sort of writing articles,
I'm more than happy to stay my channel as is. I'm happy with it. You know,
if they want me to do content for them, no, obviously not the Spectator, but you know, call me. I'm day 3.
Obviously, I want to see the numbers, you know, go up.
And I still want to see the numbers go up.
Like, I have editorial control over my channel. I decide when I schedule content out. I decide a lot of things, and having that level of self-control is important to me.
I've decided today self-glaze.
But they're saying you can't say that. You can't say that. I'm more than happy with where I am right now, and you know, fair enough. If you're saying you want to do more with your life, that's fine. But you know, again, like I work full time and I do YouTube videos. Like, you know, if you're talking about feats and achievements, then I'm not seeing your feats and achievements being that much higher than mine. You know, campaigning is great. I have at it, you know. But again, you're talking about what have I done to affect change?
Campaigning you have?
And you've achieved very little.
And like, if you're literally, again, once again, it's two different things, right? You're talking
and here's
about
the thing: lots of campaigners will go out through their lives and to affect change, and will do absolutely nothing. They will probably die before they get to see their change even made. That is how campaigning works. That is how it works. You lose a lot more than you win, but when you win, you can win very, very big.
Has he won very big with the Labour Party winning?
And that is where we are now. We are at a point where if we get rid and absolutely decimate the Tory party at the next general election, we are going to have a decade or more of really progressive politics. You are electing more than just You are electing more than Keir Starmer. You are electing the Labour Party. And you are electing...
And they elected the party that's going to cut disabilities. Okay.
The people within that party. You're electing the MPs that are going to be a very progressive majority.
Very progressive? Progressive, my ass. Honestly, what's he talking about? They're taking money away from disabled people. Literally, George Osborne said he would not do this. George Osborne, the man who's killed people through his austerity program.
MPs are not just going to stay silent if things don't start to go wrong.
So,
don't know. They're pretty quiet right now, dog. And so are you, to be fair.
For the Labour Party, so we see a Labour civil war, like it's a rebellion on Starmer. I don't get it. Like, one sec. But again, like, I'm looking at what you're saying, right? And I don't want to be mean, but again, like, campaigning is fun. I would do it more if I had more time. But between working full time and doing YouTube videos, it's not the easiest.
And it still isn't the easiest.
But the fact is, like, what you've offered is just hope and belief. Like, you know, the idea that Labour Party MPs will just sit down. The Labour MPs will actually do something when
I hate to say that's part of campaigning. You've got to.
Like, I don't know.
I think
like, for me,
when we get the manifesto, I think there's going to be a lot of
there's a line between campaigning and just like
and sort of campaign on.
I don't know. I think there's a line there between campaigning and kind of just false hope.
But you know what? I've said it before, and I will gladly say it again. I would rather get Keir Starmer's government in and get 40% of what I want than another.
So do you want to say cuts to disabilities? You know, do you want what have Labour given you that you've actually the 40% of what you want? Because the only thing you can really answer is minimum wage increase. That's really about it, I think.
4 years of Tory government and get nothing.
You're looking at 20, maybe at most.
Wait a minute, nothing. So you just said that you would like to see Labour renationalise the railway.
Okay, yeah, I said you'll get about 20%.
That's something.
I said about
20%. So again, It's like he hears what he wants to hear. It doesn't make sense.
20%. Okay, do you want PR, right? You want PR. You're not going to get that. Do you want to rejoin the EU?
Yes,
you're not going to get that.
You're going to see a lot of Labour MPs change their mind on PR.
Have they? Have they though? I don't think they have.
Such as the only one I know of really is Clive Lewis. That's about it. Clive Lewis has been
but a lot are changing their mind on PR. Not only that, Uxbridge. We had the guy who lost in Uxbridge. He was pro PR.
And when the leadership say no, it's not going to happen.
So we're backing a loser. We're saying the guy who lost. That's your great hope. A guy who lost.
You think they're going to rebel against the leader?
Keep on campaigning.
Do you think they're going to rebel against the leader? Because we've seen the Tory party only do that
when
I think they're going to face that defeat.
I think there will be a very large progressive caucus that will not, refuse to be silent and will want to see a lot.
And they got kicked out. Yeah, he took the whip from about 11 of them. The only ones who voted with the SNP to get rid of the two-child gap. He got rid of them.
Progressive things done. I do think when the rubber hits the road, when the reality hits in, they're going to have to do a lot of stuff that they said they might have to sort of jump on.
So the last time Labour promised to implement PR was, as you keep going back to the 90s, was 97, right, in the manifesto. What happened with that? Where was the pressure groups for that? Where was the campaigning for that? What happened there?
For 1997?
Yeah, they had it in the manifesto and they didn't do it.
Keep on campaigning for it.
So when they don't give you a lot of what you want, like PR and stuff like that, and you make
videos
criticising,
campaigning for it because you're going to lose.
So what are you going to do to campaign for it again?
It's like he's more than happy to be a loser. Yes, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and please also leave a comment after the live stream. Cheers. I think he still believes Labour are progressive, I'll be honest. But that's what I'm saying. Like he kept saying, just keep voting for them, keep getting them in, in the hopes that eventually he'll find a winner. So this kind of guy who'll keep buying lottery tickets in the thoughts that he's going to win at some point. He's guaranteed to win.
You put yourself back on the horse and you keep on going.
So
how are you going to campaign?
How are you going to put pressure on the Labour Party to do these things?
You just have to keep on working within the party, build these groups like Labour for PR, and you keep on going. You keep on pushing.
And
And he's not done any videos on this. It's crazy. You think if you want to push for this, I would do as much content as possible on these things. But he's done more content on Donald Trump.
You just lose. You just don't pack up and say, "Oh, that's it, lad. Let's go home."
I mean, no one is saying
keep
that.
On pushing.
Okay. Again, I'm asking for that.
So again, more strawman.
How? You're asking. What you're saying is. What you're saying is, when we hit the brick wall, we keep on running. I'm asking for the how. What specifically are you going to do here, given the fact that the membership have voted consistently for PR and the leadership have consistently rejected
again and again, and you vote for MPs and you get MPs into the Labour Party that are pro PR, and if they are not pro PR,
the leadership have a large say in candidates. They can easily pick people who are pro PR. We know Starmer's not pro PR, right? We know this for a fact. Okay. So again, if the leadership have a say over candidates, which we know they do,
which
is
true,
can weed out the pro PR MPs. The pro.
Yeah, they do have a say over candidates. We've seen that, especially during the election when they got rid of Fazia Shaheen, and they put in some donut to run against her.
Our candidates and get.
They will never manage to weed that out far.
Very easy. Do you believe in proportional representation? Yes. Unfortunately, you have not been selected to be the Labour Party candidate.
They can weed out a load of them. They can weed out a lot of them, especially around by-elections. They can weed out a load of them.
So what about the progressive
what about them?
Selection that happened down in Dorset?
And who did they pick?
They picked someone pro-progressive.
So they picked one guy in Dorset.
Yeah.
But
that's good. That's progress.
That's what I mean. Like this guy, he's too small fry. He's too not even win one battle at a time. It's more win, 1 minute of one battle at a time. Like he's too small fry. That's why he'll never get the change he wants, because he doesn't see big picture. He doesn't see big picture.
You have to sometimes take inches instead of miles. You have to keep on fighting. Being and sort of
super chats and memberships are available for you guys who want them. I'm dying here.
Fighting for politics is not easy. It does not happen overnight. You have to keep on pushing. You have to keep on fighting constantly. You just do not just go, "Oh, sorry, we've met a wall. Let's go home now."
That's not what I've said. But again, he's talking to the kid who literally idolizes Solid Snake. In terms of when he gave the best speech ever about fighting for what's right and things like that. Like this idea that I'm not optimistic is strictly untrue. But I don't believe in delusion like this man does. That's the difference between him and I. Like I can see a world that's bad and want it to change, and I know how I'd want to do it. But this guy just thinks it's gonna just happen. You know, like, oh, if I campaign hard enough, it's gonna happen. He doesn't get, like, the people he's elected won't do what he wants, and he's too timid to talk about them. You know, instead he's obsessing over Donald Trump.
Otherwise, that's just political laziness. That's entryism.
Just one sec. Is it alright if we just do some housekeeping quick? Because I think you might have some.
That's fine.
Got a super chat from Roshin. Thank you, Roshin. Someone, a £10 Mithril, said that Bowler Hatman tried to say the Green Party is anti-Semitic stuff the other day. He's either happy doing Murdoch's work or scared of the rise of the Green votes. I mean, do you have any response to
that? Yeah, actually. Let me just go.
Thank you for the memberships. Big shouts out to HK. We can skip this. I mean, Labour have no interest in PR. That is true, Roshin. So true. Yeah, it's true. So true, Roshin.
Why is Labour for PR there?
They're a
why is it the most
why are the Bolsheviks part of the Communist Party if Stalin was against the Bolsheviks? You know, why was Trotsky in the party for so long if Stalin hated Trotsky? What a stupid argument. Isn't there a group for Labour to rejoin the EU and Labour to rejoin the single market?
Yeah.
Is Keir Starmer for rejoining the EU or rejoining the single market?
Probably he might be, given the fact that he's going to have to sort of change all this.
What has he said about it, though?
When he faces it.
You
want to grow the economy, you're going to have to rejoin the EU.
Publicly on the record, what has he said about it in his more recent statements?
Well, he campaigned for a second referendum.
And then he ruled out us joining the single market. He ruled us out joining the EU. He said he's going to make Brexit work.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have to change on that as well.
I think he's going to do these things, okay? Changing his mind on that.
And you're going to have to campaign on that now.
So are you campaigning on it? So are you campaigning on it? Have you done any work to get this done? I don't think you have, pal.
Again,
you know, like, that's fine, but again, he's straight ruled out because all he cares about is the red wall. If you won in a couple of minutes, we can move on. It's actually wild, isn't it? How long he is on all of this stuff. So it's kind of he's got one point out of 23. Is crazy. He showed his true colours about Scottish people. He likes to wind them up or ignore them. I remember the co-host live. I remember when he did the stream with Reagan. That was brutal. Making Brexit work. Good luck. I did want to get your thoughts on something. Let me bear with me. What was it? Labour's kind of stance on Gaza. I did want to ask for your thoughts on that, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Blood, where's the thing? Sorry, I just.
You know, I think.
I think if you call for a ceasefire now, you can start negotiations straight after Hamas have, and I think that would be like that is true. But I
don't really trust Hamas.
Through, I did want to ask you specifically about something, and I'm just trying to bring it up. Is this screen? Let's see, because normally on LBC the cutting off water thing. Like, what did you think about that initially?
Yeah, it was bad. There's no getting around it. It was bad.
Why do you think he said it though? Because I think his initial instincts seem a bit trash.
I'm not in Keir Starmer's brain.
Because why does Boris Johnson support Brexit? I don't know. I'm not in Boris Johnson's brain. Okay. The is Labour wanted to make the party look like it's not anti-Semitic, and he's kind of misread it, or maybe he just rushed to an answer. I don't know, but that's one of the fears I do have around him when it comes to interviews and stuff.
No getting around it's bad.
And you know, when a senior Labour source has been quoted as saying the resignation of Labour councillors was a sign of the party was shaking off fleas. What do you think of
that? Again, think that's bad.
Again, this is a party he donates money to, guys. He physically pays for people to work within the party and have things like this.
What else do you want me to say to that?
What would you say to such a voter who kind of sees these statements? What would you?
Again, I think there's more difficult points to it than that. I think Labour needs an actual plan to this.
What do you say about Northern Ireland?
I think it needs a lot of international backing. I think you need a lot of proper sort of international cooperation. I think obviously South Africa going through, through the Supreme Court is a good idea. But there needs to be actually some sort of form plan. I just don't think they have one, to be honest. I don't see this being their priority. I think that's probably why this has caught them off the back foot. But a lot of it has been very. Sorry,
I just missed that.
I don't really see them thinking this as a main priority.
The conflict,
the Gaza conflict. I don't think they see this as a main priority.
Okay, I wanted to share one more. Just bear with. Because it does talk about Labour's problems with Muslim voters. Just bear with me 1 second. Sorry, I kind of pulled this. It was last night, actually.
No, it's sorry. Yeah, I've got to click on.
No, yeah, the Muslim vote. Let's see.
is this the Muslim vote for granted? What do you think about that, given the statements that Starmer made, especially when, did you see the ones he made when he went to the mosque? And he said that I reiterated my call for Hamas to release the hostages, and everyone just saying, how do you expect a mosque in Wales to get Hamas to release the hostages? I don't know if you saw that one.
I remember.
I think it's just been.
I remember that him campaigning for Northern Ireland to stay.
Definitely bad handled all around. I don't think there's any other reason. Don't know what else you expect me to say. It's been very badly handled, to be honest. I think they needed.
This is the guy who's talking big, like he's going to do all of this stuff economically, right? Can barely get any of this stuff right. It's crazy.
Clear stance on it, but neither did I think they, expect this to happen. I think they've been caught on the back foot. I don't really think they see sort of Middle East maybe as a priority.
But again, given the leader of the UK, we're not as international prominent as we were. You're still going to have to deal with international affairs, and the way he's handled this is really bad.
Yeah, it's very bad. I agree with you on that.
If we say the Nick Ferrari thing, maybe I don't want to say it's a one-off because it's a really dumb statement, especially given he's a former human rights lawyer. But given that the other stuff was pre-prepared, the tweet he put out was obviously gone through, his spin doctor and all this stuff. How stupid is this guy to put out such statements? Does he not understand?
I think it's more from their comms team than more than anything else.
That's his comms team. He's picked these people. And if he can't pick a competent comms team, what does that say about the geezer? Honestly, what does it say?
So I do find it ironic. They always blame the comms team when Starmer, he's obviously aware of who the comms team are. And he's hired certain people to deal with comms. It's a bit of a really bad dodge, because that means he's bad at hiring people. That's even worse.
You can't pick a competent comms team. I'm genuinely baffled at this. He could literally hire Phil from a different bias, right, and he would do a better job probably than the Labour comms team.
Yeah,
look at that and be no,
I don't know.
Again, what kind of guy can't hire a competent comms team? At least say people say what they want about Tony Blair, right? He had Alistair Campbell, who was probably one of the best spin doctors this country has seen. Let's be honest.
He disagree with you calling him that, but never mind.
One of the greatest PR merchants, and he's the Mourinho of PR. There we go, because Mourinho's the best PR guy in football. How's he not hired competent people this late in the game? Because they've had problems.
Don't know. Ask it's Tom.
Again, surely is that not something you put pressure on? Because again,
that's his boy. Again, he can't answer basic questions about him. Talking about how they're going to put pressure on Labour. They can't even put pressure on Labour to get a good comms team. It's been 4 years.
We are. We have put pressure on that. You've put a lot of pressure on that. You've put via what group have you have you got a Labour pressure group for better comms team?
Yeah, I've written to my sort of Yorkshire Humber Central Labour Party and said that they need to have better comms, and I've advocated that.
He's done it, guys. He wrote to them, and we've got better comms.
Our Central Labour Party person also does that as well.
Because that guy Morgan McSweeney, he's apparently someone's put in the chat there. He's their PR guy,
and he's dog shit. And he's still dog shit now.
What's going on with my man? Because again, I know he's telling them to be careful. Polls can tighten up and all this stuff, but what's if Bro can't pick a competent comms team, what's going on with that? He's picked these people. These are hand-picked people. This is his team.
He sent an email. Yeah, such activism.
You don't get it perfect every time, unfortunately.
It's not about perfect. This is not perfect. This is not
no, it is. It's bad. I agree. I agree with you.
Shake off the fleas. Shake off fleas.
Bad about it.
These, you're saying these Muslim councils are like parasites. What's up with that? This is
I know.
Wild.
It's dumb.
This is not whoopsie. This is
Yeah, I want to swing at Graham. I'll be honest. So
literally 9 out of 10 bad. This is DEFCON 2.
Yeah, I know it's bad. I don't know what else to say. It's
bad. It's bad. It's bad. Okay.
What are you supposed to? I know O'Brien had a caller recently. I think it was a Muslim vote. He called in and said he's not voting Labour, and O'Brien's well, you are helping the Tories by doing that. He's I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are.
These guys are some of the things that Labour comes out.
Should people be expected to vote for a party that's compared them to fleas? That's the question, guys.
Are just so brain dead. Someone's put campaign for a better Labour comms team, bowler hat man. That could be your campaign name.
Maybe they should do. Maybe they should do that.
Could be a touch loud.
I focus on PR. I think PR's
sound issues.
Yeah, I think Mold is just complaining. Oh, do you know what the worst thing is? It is.
Yeah.
You're a thingy player, aren't you? You're a D&D. Yeah.
So I'll try to be nice to him here. Just try and
Yeah.
Say look. Say pun.
All right. Okay. So what I wanted to do was, because I've done a lot on this.
About this, I'm going to let you share one screen. Yeah,
Okay, technology challenge people. Here we go.
Called Stefan Furing in a minute. Actually, it's worth talking about him now. Actually, let's do that. So,
it's the EU segment for European lot.
Does the EU want a closer relationship with the EU? So the UK even can't speak. So as Anton Spivak, excuse me, one of the authors of the report highlighted. So this was I think it was the Tony Blair report, right? Something from the Tony Blair Institute.
It was Roshin who sent me this one. I remember.
Spivak highlighted a Financial Times report quoting Stefan Furing, the European Commission official in charge of overseeing the trade and cooperation agreement. So he talks about how there's a bi-weekly report on how to improve trade relationships with the EU. He says, my job is to follow all of them, but he's saying he's not seen anything come out of the EU, right, on their end. So they're not too bothered about us. I think he also talked about how the 26 negotiation, or it's just about implementation. It's more just about what the UK is doing. And when we look at the single market, so this from the Tony Blair Institute, they talked about why kind of membership of the EU single market wouldn't be a great idea. They talked about how they would rather see full membership of the EU rather than just joining the single market. And this again is the Tony Blair Institute, which would have would have a big voice there, because Tony Blair. What's his name? Starmer seems to be a big fan of Tony Blair. Whatever anyone in the audience thinks about that, he's in his ear. The report also states that joining the single market would involve a renegotiation of the European Economic Area Agreement, which allows Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein to be in the single market. So effectively, it wouldn't be just us going to the EU. It would be us going to the other EEA members, the EFTA countries. So it wouldn't be as simple as us going to the Commission saying we want to get into the EU.
Oh, this is PTSD from all the times I had to debunk all the nonsense they kept coming out with.
It would go to EFTA because they are part of the EEA agreement, and what you're asking for is an expansion of the EEA. So if I stop pause on this and I go to someone who has discussed that in the past, bear with me, where's this? They're an expert who's kind of followed this very closely, saying that
Svendrup, the boy.
So he talks about like EFTA countries. See,
I'm going to skip over this bit a little bit because I already know all of this, and I think you guys already know all this as well.
When we had
it goes back to 2018, so like it's going to require
a lot of these old articles are not talking about EFA membership. They're talking about the time when we had Theresa May's Chequers deal, and there were alternative ideas being put forward.
Not true at all.
One of those ideas.
The Svendrup one was older. I think the Svendrup stuff was older than the Chequers deal, so that's not even true.
Was the Norway Plus idea, which was we could be like Norway in that sort of agreement, but then we could also seek our own separate trade deals and have our own
country. That's an EFTA country.
That's what they were. That's what a lot of those comments at the time are talking about. There's a lot of comments that say, yeah, it's really not, I think, the kind of thing that you want. We've also got very recently, as soon as 2020, the Norwegian president said that Norway might not want to be in EFTA anymore and seek some sort of better deal. You've also got the fact that Norway has a lot of power being in the EFTA, and us being in there as well is also going to help them, because even though we are a larger economy, that's not necessarily a bad thing for them.
So Norway would disagree with you?
We have vastly different economies. We have vastly different economic concerns.
Norway see it the very opposite of that. They see us as a bigger economy, a bigger population, and competition. That's the same way Norway.
We have vastly different economies,
but
we have vastly different economies.
Competition.
Ours is a service-based economy.
It's a massive power imbalance.
Norway comes from minerals. It comes from oil and gas.
They see us as massively unbalancing their group.
Concern when it comes to
they see us as massively unbalancing the group because of our population size, and they see us as a loose cannon, given the fact that we are not the most trustworthy.
And it would give the Norway a lot more power because we would align on a lot of stuff.
And we would not align on a lot of things, and we would.
No, we would probably do. Services.
We can't even agree on a fishing deal with Norway, so I don't think we would align on a lot of stuff.
Is certainly an area we'd align on.
But again, like that's not what they've said. That's not what the most recent articles, which are from a few years ago.
That's not regarding what the actual situation for Norway is. Plus, Norway really likes us as a country. I know that seems not to account for a lot, but they actually really do.
Didn't they get rid of their fishing agreement with us because we tried to play games with them and they said, all right, cool.
No, Norway was probably actually quite fine with allowing us in because they'd be able to sell a lot more fish.
No, that's not true. Norway got rid of their fishing deal with us, so he's lying again.
They stopped us. They literally stopped us fishing in Norway.
Yeah, and they'd have tariff-free access.
They
sell more fish into the UK.
They literally stopped their fishing deal. They stopped their fishing deal with us because we decided to play games over the fishing agreement that we had with them.
So the idea that we're good friends with them.
Yeah, and if we join, that would mean also really joining the common fisheries policy, which again Norway is part of. Not a problem.
But again, like Norway have said no. Like the
No, they
Icelandic
haven't.
countries.
No, they haven't. Norway
yes,
would not say no.
They have.
Norway would not say no. Okay, how many things have Norway vetoed in the EU?
Sorry?
How many things have Norway vetoed in the EU?
They've not vetoed anything because they can't.
They can do.
How are they going to veto anything that the EU passes?
They can veto it if it's in to do with ITA. They have veto power. Yeah.
Over things in ITA.
They literally don't. They don't. He just doesn't. Oh, I forgot how much of an idiot this guy is. He doesn't know how the EU works. This is what I mean. Like all of these rejoiners, right? All of these are people obsessed with the EU. Genuinely don't understand how it works. Norway do not have a veto. There's none. They're just consulted.
What is ITA?
Oh, sorry.
You mean after?
Yeah, after. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
They can't veto it. The EU tells them these are the new rules, and you're going to accept them. That's it.
So he's talking about if EFTA make changes.
Really?
Yes.
How many EU rules does Norway currently follow?
They don't have to follow all of them. I believe they follow 3/4 of them, but it's the ones
Wait a minute,
that
you just said Norway has to accept, but they only currently employ about 21% of EU rules.
What do the rest apply to them? Are they anything around what Norway does?
So if Norway barely have a service economy, why would they follow the EU's rules on services when there's nothing there to follow?
They follow 21% of Norway rules. How is real rule taker Norway?
But they have no say over it. Like the rules might not impact them, or they might just put it into domestic law.
Which is probably true. They probably just put it into domestic law. Like they just follow EU guidance on it. Like a lot of the EU directives are not direct legislation. It's just stuff that they want you to implement, like the passport stuff. And then it's up to you how you physically implement it.
Done it. That's how we do it. That's how we used to do it.
So why can't we do that as well? If we join them, why are we? Again, you're saying this that Norway's going to sort of balk at this, but us just being a larger economy isn't really an issue. Yeah, we're a larger economy.
That's the thing he doesn't get. Like he thinks like the world, like people can just work together. Yeah, he did think Norway was able to veto stuff. He thinks the world can just get along and kumbaya and all this stuff. He doesn't get like every country is competing with each other for the most part.
Norway gets access to us.
Literally competition. Norway told us to get lost for a reason.
No, we're not.
Because
we are not.
They don't want us to imbalance. They've told us this. Agriculturally, we are
Norway is the powerhouse when it comes to gas or electricity, mining resources.
So he doesn't get how important the agricultural sector is to Norway, as in not from a GDP point of perspective, because that's all these guys look at GDP. It's more like a cultural perspective. It's more like a social good, I guess. Keeping farmers employed and things like that. That's why they have such high tariffs.
Do you know why Norway? Do you know one of the reasons why Norway didn't want to join the EU?
Yeah, because of its iron and coal sort of
agricultural policy. One of the main reasons was agricultural policy, because they want to protect their farmers. That's why they have such high tariffs on things like cheese, because they're trying to protect Norwegian farmers. It's not just about the bigger areas where they compete in. They want to protect their domestic markets.
Sell stuff into the UK.
And we're going to sell stuff into them, which they don't like. They don't want to compete. That's why you set up a protective bloc. You don't want to compete. That's why you have tariffs.
But why they didn't join the EU properly? No to that? We could get into this. The idea that Norway's going to say no is not realistic. They are going to do it. They have
said no. According to this it was one of these Scottish newspapers, The National, right? One sec, let me share this so you can see as well, because it's not the fairest. They're horrified when Boris Johnson gate crashing their about gate crashing EFTA. They didn't want us in EFTA. They don't want us in the single market. That's the problem. That's the point.
Okay, can I read this to you?
Go on.
This is it, guys. Are you ready? Guys, this is it. It's happening. Everyone stay calm.
What year is that book from?
So, this is from 2016. This is a 2016 edition.
Over about a decade ago.
That doesn't matter.
It literally does matter, because they've had multiple politicians since then.
So, firstly, the Norwegians who act as information leaders of the group may object. A massive economy like Britain suddenly jumping into a little out-of-the-way trade agreement is like having someone dump an elephant into your swimming pool. But despite this reluctance on the issue, Norway is unlikely to veto British membership.
British membership, what, EFTA?
Yeah.
So you're citing something from 2016, despite the fact that it's been usurped by stuff much more recent than that.
Yeah, it's still the same. We're still in the same position. Reapplying for that sort of position would not change anything.
26-1 is crazy, guys. 26-1. I'm absolutely cooking this guy.
Going to sort of veto our membership of it. Despite their concerns, they ain't going to veto it.
They've said they're going to veto it. He cites a book that says it's unlikely they will, but it's possible. And he's dying on this hill.
Again,
especially when you've got the president of Norway saying that he wants to sort of renegotiate EFTA with the EU. Us being again in EFTA would give Norway then a lot more negotiating power.
What else
it would make EFTA a lot more.
Yeah, the great Nord himself. He was there when the Vikings took over foreign lands. He was there when they discovered America. He was there during the raids on churches in the UK. Ian Dunt, the great Nordic gospel. He's as wise as Odin, and he is strong as Odin's son. Behold, Ian Dunt, the Prince of Brexit.
Out in the EU, it would give Norway and the UK a lot of influence. Norway is not
give us that much. Olna Solberg literally came out, the leader of the Norwegian opposition, and said, "Look how much trouble the UK are having negotiating with the EU. We wouldn't stand a chance." And let's see this: if you combined EFTA's population of around 5 million with the UK's population of 65 million, that gives you around 70 million. Hardly a big increase. Hardly a big increase.
Norway then has access to our market.
That's fine, but they don't see us
in gas, fish.
They literally sell us gas,
minerals, forestry.
Have we put tariffs
everything
on
that they are good at? We do not have.
Again, like Norway still sell gas to us. They've not gone down.
I think Norway's our biggest gas exporter, as in exporting to us.
The gas has not gone down, and given the fact that European countries are far more reliant now on Norwegian gas because of Russia.
We've also done exporting that as well.
No one's going to say like, we're going to put a tariff on Norwegian gas. You'd be an idiot to do that. Like literally nothing has changed. Like they want to export stuff to us. They're still doing that. If anything, they're going to look at other countries because we're a third country. We're not a major player anymore. Furing himself, the guy who runs the TCA for the EU, he's saying they're not looking at the old players. They're looking at new players. They're looking at bringing in new people. They have no interest looking at us. Even not just Norway.
We haven't said we want to join. We have not said anything about wanting to join. Until we say we want to join, then the EU are going to sort of pay attention.
He's literally talking about the reports coming out of the Tony Blair Institute saying the EU aren't saying shit about this because they don't care.
Yeah, because we haven't said anything about rejoining at the moment or anything like that.
I've cited Furing here, who's saying we're not on the radar.
Because we're not having actually joined. Why would we?
Why do you think Tony Blair was putting this stuff out? Because this is what he wants. He wants the UK to rejoin the EU. So he's putting this out there to try and get positive feedback effectively. And in the end, the EU were like, "Nah, blood, it's not happening."
We haven't asked to join.
Trump would do that. To be fair,
they ask their opinions about it, and they say, "Look, would you look for the UK to rejoin?" And they're like, "We can look into that. What would be the economic impacts of the UK looking to rejoin?"
Yeah,
they're saying we're looking at new members.
Is not going to be.
Don't start, Tim. That's a spoiler.
Negative.
They're looking at new members and saying we're going to look at new players because they know what we're like. They know we're a pain. If you look at the stuff that actual these kind of politicians in EFTA have said, like then they don't want us to be in the customs union as well as the single market group. They see it as a problem because again we're competing with other countries. That's how they see us. We've always been competition to them. The more you say the UK's a big economy, the more they see us as competition. The more they see us as a threat. Because we are.
Yeah, and we'd be in there.
One of the things he doesn't understand is like protection is important to these countries because if we start massively exporting loads of stuff to them, we decimate their local industries. That's what he doesn't get.
Economy.
That's a point I probably should have made. I'll keep that one for the future.
And we'd all be trading under the same sort of rules and regulations. We'd be on a level playing field with them.
That's true. But if they see us as a market, they can predominantly export to.
Why is that a problem? If
right now,
going to abide by that.
Right now, we are a country that imports a lot more to the EU than we export. Right. So that benefits the EU tremendously. So if they can continue doing that, why would they want to help us when it comes to our exports?
Well, we haven't asked to join yet, and there is a process for joining. And again, you've got to sort of cite politicians in the EU who have said that they would block or veto the UK from joining. There are not any EU politicians saying that.
So he used the argument, well, these reports don't count because you haven't asked to join, right? And then he's like, well, have any politicians have said they'd be against us joining? He's like, okay, but like you said, we've literally not asked to join.
They would do that.
Have we asked to join?
There have been multiple examples of the EU politicians, even Ursula von der Leyen, who have said if the UK ever wanted to rejoin, that the door is open.
Are you citing Barnier, Michel Barnier?
Well, no, the Ursula von der Leyen.
The EU's commissioner, the one who has
Yeah.
very little say over this.
Yeah, she's very influential. To say that she's got no say in this
Is she influential? Is von der Leyen that influential? I don't think she is. Who decides?
That's wrong.
Who decides who joins the EU or not?
Ultimately, it would be sort of the Council of EU. It would be sort of the EU
Council of
Parliament
EU?
as well. It would also be sort of down to the individual countries as well.
It's down
in
to the
EU.
member states. So von der Leyen can say what she wants.
None of them are going to say no.
Von der Leyen is literally, she has been accused of overstepping the mark multiple times. None of the EU countries are going to say no, despite the fact that they benefited from Brexit. They benefited from us leaving because the Netherlands benefited from Brexit. I think Ireland politically it's damaged them a little bit, but they also benefited massively, I think, from Brexit. The Portuguese have benefited from Brexit. The Spanish have benefited from Brexit. Yeah. Picked up the slack. They've picked up what we've left. They've picked up investment.
Benefit from that because they would have back tariff-free access to the UK.
They have tariff-free access to the UK.
To sell into more customers in the UK.
They have tariff-free access for the most part now because of our FTA. They are literally exporting to us with minimal checks. Once the checks come in, you might have an argument, but until then, you really don't.
You would do.
Ice in the fucking veins, guys.
You would. You could. All we have to do is just say, "Hey, can we rejoin?" And then we just start a process through negotiations.
What, rejoin the EU or rejoin the single? These are two different. Okay, let's go back to this. Right?
There is no one
rejoining the EU or rejoining the single. Croatians are benefiting from this. I don't think any country's been impacted that negatively from the UK leaving, to be honest. Because again, they've kept us for exports. Have EU exports to the UK actually dropped off that much?
I would prefer to rejoin the EU and have full membership.
So again, countries that have benefited from us leaving, countries like Spain, countries like the Netherlands, whose steel industry is doing, I think, a lot better. Tata Steel is not those where they are. Spain are competing to us to such a level that they offered no subsidies. They offered no subsidies to Jaguar Land Rover, and the UK had to fork out millions for Jaguar Land Rover to set up shop there.
Not Jacques de Gaulle made about why the UK didn't join.
And do you know what? Shouts out to that guy because de Gaulle was right. De Gaulle was correct 100%. He said the UK are just going to cause trouble. He said no. And do you know what? Shouts out to that man. They built an airport after that guy. They put up an airport. They named an airport after that guy. So big up my man de Gaulle. Big up de Gaulle.
And eventually de Gaulle had to relent on that.
I don't think de Gaulle did.
Everyone was like, actually,
didn't de Gaulle die?
UK in. It's not a bad thing.
Didn't de Gaulle die before that happened? Or he was out of power?
That's eventually his reluctance to that made him look an absolute lunatic.
But I would argue de Gaulle was correct.
All the other countries were really annoyed for not doing that.
De Gaulle now. Are you saying de Gaulle said yes to the UK joining the EU or joining the EU?
No, he died before he ever changed his mind.
Relent then.
No.
He didn't relent. And in the end, he was proved right.
Yes, he didn't relent. He didn't want the UK in.
He was proved right though. Because we got too big and we caused problems in the group and we left.
Your argument here is that for some reason the EU is not going to allow more people into a market where they can sell into.
It's not just economics.
So why didn't the EU just let Russia in? Why didn't the EU let Russia and China into the group? Why didn't they let everyone? Turkey? Why Turkey not a member? The USA, a bigger market than us, a bigger economy than us. Why not let the US in as well?
It's political as well. Does the EU want another toxic member, a bigger version of Poland or Hungary?
Facts.
Would the EU want that?
Well, Poland's not an issue anymore, to be honest.
Because they've changed leadership.
Internally, they've made a change.
They've changed leadership. Sure.
Hungary is at the moment going to sort of probably find that it loses its veto power soon, and then if it doesn't,
they can't take away Hungary's veto.
Change its tune, it will probably be kicked out.
The only thing, I mean, there's no mechanism for the EU, I think, to kick out a member state. It's only for a member state to leave. The only thing they can do is withhold funds.
There are mechanisms for the EU.
There isn't.
What mechanism is it?
That is what they are threatening the Hungary with now.
Does anyone in chat know? Does anyone in chat know what mechanism the EU has to kick out member states? I've not heard of that. As far as I'm aware, it's up to Article 50. It's the only thing they can do is a member state can say they want to leave, but I've not heard of the EU being able to kick out a member state.
Time out, peeps. Yeah, his voice is great on me as well. No worries, bro. Have a good night.
Yeah, they can start that process.
This is literally just self-glazing at this point. This is just me remembering how good I was last year.
Article 7 is that the one you're talking about?
Hungary now. I think it's Article. I think it's not Article. Is it Article 7?
Someone in chat's mentioned Article 7, but I can't tell if that's true. Roshin put in a super chat saying Furing said the EU is concentrating on ascending members over a member that has left. The EU has moved on from Brexit, and that's based on what Furing has said. That is true.
Yeah, it's moved on from Brexit. But if we are serious about rejoining, which we do and we want to campaign for, the EU is going to have probably a different position on that.
But again, you're going to have to convince all of the member states to let us back in. I mean, if
not
anything,
really-
the only real argument you have is joining the single market is more
Your
difficult than joining
argument
the
is
EU fully.
they're saying no, but you're
It's a political argument, yes,
based
because
on nothing as well.
not
They've
really.
done better from Brexit, but they're not going to say no.
Again, but the EU member states are talking about, the commissioners are looking at saying, we're looking to the future, we're looking to new member states, not old members, which is clearly talking about the UK.
And one of the big
That's
movements
evidence
within
right
Europe is that the EU should include all EU countries. That includes the UK. There is an ideological alignment for the UK to be in from a lot of these people who have pro-EU ideological alignment. They are not going to say no if we rejoin.
They're talking about the UK having to change fundamentally, like a lot. Like we still have to get past the Copenhagen criteria, which the UK has no chance of, unless we make.
We get to
fundamental
30.
changes, which,
Yeah, we get easy. Yeah, I reckon we can get to 40.
Sama said he's not going to do things like PR, proportional representation, amongst other things. So again, like you're talking about a very long process.
Negotiations. I mean, we might be able to rejoin
No,
as
we have
we
to
are
pass
on
the
that.
Copenhagen criteria. Like we will have to. They won't let a member ascend unless they meet the criteria. They want to see things like bipartisan support for joining the EU, which I don't know when that could happen. That could be about 10 years away at best. But point being is like the idea that us just rejoining the single market by asking the EU to let us back in, that's not reality based on the evidence that I've kind of provided.
Yeah, it is. Your evidence is just they're not going to let us rejoin.
My evidence is literally all the articles are cited from different members in EFTA saying why they wouldn't take us back.
Because they're currently not focused on the UK. The UK.
My evidence is on the single market. It would require the EU member states.
Said, we want to rejoin. Then I think at that point the EU
evidence
to start thinking about
evidence is we'd have to require the consent of all EU member states and EFTA countries, some of which have said no straight up. So that's
no, they haven't.
Pretty much dead.
None of them. If we went for full EU membership again, they're not going to say no.
I've said joining the single market and then not about joining the EU fully. Like I mentioned the single market specifically there. About joining the EU, I mean, again, that'll be up to the member states, and we don't know. You're right. We are, to an extent, we don't know what their stance is, but we don't know if we'll even be able to convince British people to accept the euro, for example. That's going to be another tricky one.
That's going to be negotiable. The idea that we'd have to accept the euro, I'd like to accept the euro, but that's negotiable. Because are you going to tell Denmark they have to accept the euro?
Again, like it's a bit different back then compared to now.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I think Denmark joined before the euro was even a thing.
The EU forced the euro on Denmark.
Again, like what year did Denmark join the EU?
You get that exception?
Because they allowed us to have a referendum on it, so
that might happen again in negotiations.
But they're not going to negotiate. Why would they negotiate with a member state? That doesn't make any sense.
Damn, bro. HK with a £20 super chat. Thank you, my friend. Well done. Yeah, I'm just. Do you know what? I was feeling like down from YouTube because I know I've been delisted now. I've confirmed it, kind of, because thank you, Alistair for the memberships. Basically, my friend, I was talking to him last week, and he said, yeah, he has to search to find my videos. So for me, that tells me I've been delisted on YouTube. So it kind of does knock my motivation a lot. But also the fact that frauds like him exist, the other frauds exist in this space. I think I'm probably the best one at dealing with clowns like this, to be honest. So kind of me leaving YouTube would be sad in that sense.
We had a referendum.
Yeah, thanks so much, HK. That goes a long way, honestly.
Sorry?
Denmark, not Norway. Denmark.
No, yeah, Denmark joined the EU in around 1994.
Yeah, but it doesn't use the euro. Are you going to say that Norway has to be forced to use? Denmark has to be forced to use the euro?
Norway's an existing member, so it doesn't make sense for them to try that. But I'm saying for a new member, which will be a new member, that's the point.
Yeah, and that means there's room to negotiate.
On the euro. So we're going to apply to join this group that predominantly uses the euro, and we're going to try and pretend we're a person who's not going to cause a lot of trouble.
And here's the thing,
and we're going to say fundamentally we're not going to accept your currency.
It's not the biggest loss in the world.
Again, this clan doesn't get that. You're going to have to convince other people in the UK about this.
We lose the pound and we pick up the euro.
Again, you're going to have to convince, that stuff, I think there are benefits if you listen to people like Stephanie Kelton on controlling your own currency, but again, you're going to have to convince the British public to accept the euro. And as Roshan points out, Denmark is an EU member state, they're not going to force it, and they're not going to be able to anyways, even if they wanted to. So again, like I was saying, for a new member state, which is the point.
Yeah, and
you have to emphasize that word so many times. A new member state. This guy don't get it.
The UK negotiators are going to go, well, you're saying we have to accept the euro, but there's a couple of other EU countries that don't have the euro. Why do we have to accept it?
And the EU can say, okay, we're taking our football and buy. Like, again, like
they're not just going to take the football home away from that.
I mean, they can easily do that.
They literally can. So if they
not
want
gonna
to, they can,
happen.
because again, we're the ones who benefit
in a
from it.
negotiation state where there's lots of stuff going to be negotiated. They're not just going to take their bat and ball home over that.
So, you know, again, like, you're going to say we're not going to join the euro straight up. You're assuming a world where we've got proportional representation and the other changes we want. That's fine, but again, it's a bit of a British exceptionalist argument. But okay, whatever. We're not going to accept the euro.
Not a British exceptionalist argument. Reality.
Are we going to?
The EU and the UK are going to negotiate, and there's going to be exceptions.
And you think they're going to relent on the euro, which is one of their biggest ones?
Yeah, I think they might do.
Okay. Apparently, another one.
Okay. Well, we can barely get a decent trade deal with them, but okay.
One is you have to keep your deficit below 3%, which is be a tough one.
Yeah, again, don't think that's necessarily going to happen either. When there are again other EU countries that
again, like this is for a new member applying. This is for a new member.
A new member. I don't get why this. I couldn't understand the word new.
All of exceptions the EU sort of will insist to, but would probably say, well, actually.
So our negotiations are going to go. We're not accepting the euro. Our deficit is not going to run below 3%. We might
depends what happens when we come to negotiations.
We might have proportional representation. Again, like if you're not going to give anything, if you're barely giving anything, what do we have to offer the EU then in that situation?
So we will be fully sort of joining the EU. We will sort of be following their rules and regulations. We'll be sort
we
of
already follow their rules and regulations for the most part, I think. Because
we already follow, yeah. Apart from on baby food.
We have to follow their rules.
We'll be adding to sort of their security agreement because we have very sort of good security services.
I mean, our army's fucked and our navy's fucked, so we won't be offering
a touch. We'll realign with them on security agreements in sort of.
We had a prime minister a couple of years ago who was potentially exposed by Russians. So,
I forget what the European. I can't remember what it's called now. The European sort of security agency just sort of database a profile that's going to sort of be very good. There's a ton of stuff that like the EU would sort of benefit from and get.
So they have NATO. So you know, in terms of security agreements, do they want to deal with a country that our navy ships literally crashed into each other the other day? I mean, that's not great.
That's not an issue.
I mean,
it's not an issue.
Military and navy
there we go. He said it, guys. He said it.
The EU is not a defensive alliance yet.
So we're going to do a defense agreement with a country when our army and our navy are pretty fucked. And the EU are looking at rearming. Like, that's something they're doing actively, and they've got procurement agreements with each other, and they're benefiting from that.
Yeah, and the EU would probably benefit from that as well, because we probably buy a lot of weapons and equipment from the EU.
But we can already buy weapons from them. Like, you know, like what difference does it make? We're already doing that.
Yeah, and we could probably we'd probably be a better customer for them if we were inside the EU and customs union as well. And sort of a member of the EU.
We'd also be a bigger competitor to their current sellers, though, because again, Britain does make a load of decent weapons. We'd also be a competitor for their domestic producers.
It's not the biggest issue. Like being competitive in certain areas is not really a big issue.
So if you're a country in the EU like Italy, which I think Italy does produce a decent amount of weapons, and you're thinking, right, we let the UK back in, they're going to sell a lot more guns, and we're going to not be able to sell as many guns. I don't really like that as such.
That's really not an issue.
So competition is not an issue.
No. Otherwise, the EU would have never formed in the first place.
Yeah, because it was a peace agreement. It was countries that trade with each other.
No, it started with the European Coal and Steel Agreement,
which is based on the idea that countries that trade with each other,
that competing countries would come together and sort of sell coal and steel in a sort of an equal and fair manner.
Right, and it's evolved.
And that would sort of, you know, that again, competition, not an issue. It's not going to be a case in negotiations.
Not an issue.
So the EU, being a very protectionist bloc, does not care about competition then?
Yeah, because we'd be inside the bloc.
So we'd be again, like if we wanted to join, we'd be competing with what exists there already.
So I don't get how he automatically jumps to we're already in the club. I don't get how he's got to that bit.
Ready, which they're not happy. Which they're not going to be happy about. Some of the producers are not going to be happy about.
It's not a big issue. It is not an issue. It's not an issue because the companies aren't the government.
And you think they're not going to lobby the government? You don't think they're going to say, like, look, guys, you know, we employ hundreds of people here and we manufacture all of these goods. If you allow this other country in who also
if the German car industry and you say, we can get rid of complete all tariffs from one of our
we don't have any tariffs.
Biggest.
There is no tariffs though. What we have an FTA on most of this stuff. Like there is no tariffs on cars. There is one they were looking at putting in, but I don't know if the EU have delayed that one.
Yeah,
Someone
and
in chat
looking
can
at
have to let me know.
batteries, electric cars coming in soon as well.
Do you know they want to? They want to.
Is the German car manufacturer going to go? Oh, that's actually quite a good place.
But do you know what else they've said?
Sell a lot of cars if we get rid of this.
Do you know what else they've said? They want to protect the EU as an organisation. They're happy with where it is now. That's what they've said. The whole argument that Brexit has made is the German car industry won't have the UK being out of it. But they said, cool, see ya.
That's they were fine with it. But they're also going to be probably fine if we're back in it and they can sort of sell more easily to the UK.
Pretty indifferent. Where are we going to buy the cars from if we're not buying BMWs and stuff from Germany, Italy, and Spain? Where else are we going to buy the cars from?
From them.
Because
we'll be inside the single market customs union. It'll be easier.
We're literally doing that now. It doesn't change. Nothing much has changed. We don't do checks. Like, this guy's so dumb, man. Like, I don't understand how you could obsess over the EU so much and be this dumb. It's already fairly easy for them to sell. They literally manufacture the cars for the most part over there and sell it to us.
Easy as it was.
It'll be a bit easier. Like, I don't think this is an issue where they're going to go to bat and say, "Oh no, I said it's not an issue." Oh no, that's one for me. The UK and the EU for this.
This is added.
Sorry.
Considering the amount of paperwork and cost this is added.
Again, like a lot of these,
it takes someone extra 2 hours to send carts or paperwork for car manufacturing. Do you know that?
Is the car going to rot whilst it's on the way?
That's a lot of manpower. That's a lot of cost suddenly.
And they're also used to it because they sell to a lot of other third countries. They would have sold to, before pre-war, they would have sold to Russia. They would have sold to countries like Kazakhstan, countries like India, for example. Hey, what do you get a 2? Hey, that's not on.
Someone having to do an extra 2 hours of paperwork. That's a lot of time.
Who pays the end cost?
Can suddenly disappear like that once we're back in the single market customs union. Germany would go, hell yes, we've got a lot of cars to now sell to the UK.
They've literally not said that though, because they don't care. Because they know we're going to buy the cars regardless, and the end consumer is going to pay for the cost of it, so they don't care. If that was the case, that the German car makers were like, "Oh right, we need to keep the UK in the single market," they would have made a bigger fuss. Sorry.
And then they can take that cost to the end of consumer and then be able to sort of sell cars.
Businesses don't pass on savings; they pass on costs for the most part. They only pass on savings when they have to.
Yes, and if we are in the single market customs union, meaning there is no tariffs once again,
there's no tariffs now.
They're not going to sell cars at a cheaper rate.
No, not unless they have to. Not unless they have to compete. But again, like they don't see us as a big fish.
Again,
we're not a big dog.
Not an issue.
It's not us.
You're making a big deal about competition, but it's really not a big issue considering the fact that you've got right now Ukraine probably looking at joining.
What they want with the UK is they want to keep us as an export market. That's about it. They don't want to import too much from us because again, that's taking away jobs and opportunities away from member states. It's not hard to understand. Right.
Competition does not seem to really be an issue.
What are Ukraine going to sell into the EU?
Probably a lot of grain.
Okay, and Poland right now are not happy about that, and that's something they're making a big deal of already.
The previous government was. New one isn't.
The new one literally was as well. The new one's barely had any time to do anything.
No, they have.
We don't know. We don't know what they're going to say, but they barely had that much time.
Changed on this. Like Donald Tusk has changed on this because at the moment, because of the Ukraine war, Poland is having to send a lot of its grain into sort of the EU. Once this war is over and the Black Sea is sort of safe,
yeah, that was a massive lie. Yeah,
grain transportation again, it's going to be able to send a lot more grain abroad.
So the competition argument falls apart then. Your argument falls apart if they're going to start selling the grain more to India once the war ends. So then Poland will be like, "Oh, cool, these aren't competing with us."
The same customers.
They won't have.
They do.
If they're selling it via Poland, Poland are worried that their own grain farmers are going to be put out because they can buy cheaper grain from the EU. That was literally the guy before Donald Tusk's whole argument.
Yeah, and you know what? It didn't really affect Polish grain farmers.
Based on.
I think it was cost per 1,000. They would make.
I think it's still ongoing. To be fair,
£500 less or €500 sort of less. They were making on average Polish farmers again because of the current crisis in the EU. Sorry, not in the EU, in Ukraine. Prices went up because of this. They started making a killing because they will now be able to sell Polish grain and a lot more. It's not really a big issue.
Yep. Again, like
really
so, he's saying that they lost out of €500 or whatever on he never gave an amount. It's not an issue. They literally blocked it at the border, so I don't know. They saw it as a big issue.
It's really not.
But again,
it's really not.
Given the fact that there are parts of the EU that have blocked trade deals with. I think they delayed the deal with Canada because they were worried about how they were going to be impacted by it. And there's a very small group, I think it was of like Belgian farmers or something like that, right? Clearly an issue.
About it, at the end of the day, once Ukraine is in, they'll be in. It's not going to really be an issue. Like, you're making this big thing about competition. It's not an issue.
Again, like
because we'll be in, we'll be on playing on the same level playing field.
EU companies
Everyone
have
will
benefited
have
from us
the same
leaving.
competition
EU
standards.
companies, again, like EU companies have
Otherwise,
benefited from us leaving.
Why let anyone into the EU? Why talk about any current countries potentially joining? After all, they're adding competition.
It's fundamentally a peace project. That's why. Because they see more markets they can sell to, they see more markets they can influence, and also, more people to sell stuff to as well.
It's more an economic one, really, than a peace project.
Peace through trade, peace through economics doesn't really make that much of a difference. Which
economics
are you going to pick? But fundamentally, like, the UK is a much bigger player than Ukraine as well, and like the EU members have benefited from us not being there. We're paying through the nose subsidies for us to get companies. The EU aren't doing that. Tesla picked Germany over the UK, so if the UK joins the single market again, if the UK becomes a manufacturing hub again, that's competition for them. Again, that's competition for those people in the country. It literally is.
It's already there. It's already there.
No, it's already
there.
We're not competing.
If you join, it's not an issue. It is not an issue.
Yes,
competition is not an issue. Competition is just not an issue when it comes to sort of.
So if you said to Germany, right, if the UK is in the EU, right, and Tesla say, look, we might set up shop in the UK, we might set up shop in Germany because you have a relatively level playing field. We can make the cars in the UK. We can just sell them into the EU. It's not a problem, right?
So why have all the EU manufacturing bases not fully moved from the UK then?
They are moving.
If competition matters so much, why have they all not gone running? Now there has been some movement,
subsidies,
but not every single company has gone running back to the EU.
Some of these companies will just manufacture for the domestic market. I mean, I think we've seen Jaguar Land Rover leave. We've seen other companies leave. Nissan left.
Yeah, some have left, but not all of them.
But not all of them.
If competition matters.
Because they're setting up. It's possible that we've offered them fat subsidies, which we know the government has offered them before. That could be one of the reasons why I think Vauxhall was one we offered a lot in subsidies to. So again, like that argument doesn't really make sense if they can make the money from subsidies.
It's not an issue.
It literally is because that's what the EU set up for. It doesn't. It sets up tariffs and it's very protectionist for that reason. It doesn't like.
Yeah, and we'll be in that protectionist agreement once we sort of go through the whole process.
We want to be in the protectionist agreement. They might not want us in there because we are a competitor. We are going to compete with them.
No, it's not an issue. Because we'll be in the same place, we'll be on the same level playing field. They'll be able to sell more cars to the UK as a sort of an addition to the market. The German car manufacturing
they already sell to us.
40 now. I told you I'll get about 40.
They sell to us. We're already a buyer. All that happens is if they make it easier for trade to us, if they make it easier for us to trade with them, we will become more of an exporter. That's what they don't want. A country would rather.
Again, it's true. Like this is all aged so well.
Export as much as it can and import as little as it can.
Again, it's not going to be an issue.
Okay, it's not an issue, guys.
No, it's not going to be an issue. Okay, basic country economics. Them being able to export to us and import less from us, not going to be an issue. Them taking services from us and benefiting massively their service industry.
Yeah, studios. Here lies Big Maj Studios. He died of brain aneurysms from other people's stupidity. He said it wasn't an issue.
It's not an issue.
Single market.
What?
It's not going to be an issue. We'll be inside it.
No, but that's the point. That we're not going to. If we're looking to join it, if we're looking to join it, these are the considerations they're going to have. And again, like with the single market stuff, we've already covered most of it.
It's going to be a consideration, but it's not going to be like the biggest issue.
So they're going to say, "Oh, I'm very concerned about this. However, it's not a problem."
It's not an issue. Oh, I missed the chance to say they're going to say it's not an issue.
It's fair. It's not an issue. Fine. Basic economics, not an issue. That's fine.
Fiscal rules, not an issue.
Yeah,
sources that I made it the fuck up.
Oh yeah, this is where I got really tilted. This is where I got really annoyed. I started spamming my soundboard, and then I didn't realize it was double echoing.
Joining, we're going to be in sort of the same sort of level playing.
Remember when they first saw this as well, like them two, when they were doing a review of this? So funny.
It's not going to be an issue.
So we're gonna.
Do you know what? Yeah, we'll do a little post-stream chat as well if you guys want. After this, just to. Do you know what? Being on the outside of this is hilarious.
Considers join, they're going to look at this and say, "Psych, we're not that concerned."
It's not going to be an issue. This whole competition agreement is just not an issue.
They're
Otherwise,
not worried about us competing with them. Okay.
Yeah, so competition happens anyway. Like competition happens anyway, regardless.
So for the EU,
If we
that
join
has us
the single
as
market
an export
customs union,
market.
it's just going to be exactly the same thing.
No, it's not. It will be
This
more
idea that
competition because we can export more.
Because we've changed where we are does not change it.
It literally does though, because we can export more easily to them.
Yes, it does. We'll be in the same thing.
No. Okay, look, for us to export meat, right, for example, cows, beef, right? How difficult is it to get through the Dover-Calais crossing?
Well, we've got to go through all the sort of paperwork. There'll be vet and health checks, rules of origin checks as well to see where it's come from, depending sort of how that meat is sort of processed. That adds a lot of time and cost to sort of the product.
Okay, so what happens when we rejoin the single market in the customs union?
Those checks go.
So if you're a farmer in France and you realise you've got to compete with British farmers, they've got all this paperwork in the way. You can sell more stuff. If the UK looks at rejoining, you're going to have to compete with more people. It changes everything.
Then the EU should just never expand.
No, but that's not the
point.
Because
no, it's expanded too far. You cannot have any more people.
So another brilliant straw man from this geezer. That's how they're going to look at us. They look at us as major. They look at us. Do you know why? Do you know why they don't? They haven't offered us. What's it called? They've only offered a dynamic alignment deal. Do you know why?
Because
compared to the equivalency agreements.
We wanted when we were leaving.
No. Do you know why they haven't offered us?
So originally, Frost wanted a equivalency deal, but the EU said no. The EU only offered dynamic alignment.
Equivalency deal like they offer New Zealand, because they see us as a major player and they don't want us to diverge in certain areas. That's all it is.
Really, we're a major player, and
they see us as major competition.
How much of a benefit would that be, having a major player be in your single market?
How much is it? How much of a major player are we when we buy their stuff and we don't sell as much to them?
Again, they would be fine with that.
They are fine.
No, they not. Yeah, they would not want us to be a major exporter.
They are literally fine with it. That's why they're not tweaking the TCA.
There's no argument for us to not allow him, because that trade would still happen.
Please listen to what I'm saying.
That trade would still happen, though.
We are importing.
It's not an argument.
We import a lot.
So this is the bit where I have to dumb it down for Dum Dum here.
It's nothing. It's not going to be an issue.
It literally is. We are importing a lot from the EU.
It's really not.
Oh, are we importing? We are importing still a lot.
Why was it an issue when we were in the single market customs union?
What?
Why wasn't it an issue sort of in, I don't know, 2020?
What, during the transitional period?
To their trade power as well, but it's a very different thing to where it is now.
Issue, because it's nothing. This idea that it's going to be an issue is just pointless. It's not going to be an issue. The companies and businesses
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Great. There's this extra now market and an extra addition to the market we can now sell to.
They've taken so much. Bro, like, people are leaving.
Yes,
manufacturers have left. Manufacturers have left. Farmers have left. Farming companies, agricultural companies have left. Services have left. They are taking that from us.
Regardless whether we are in or out. They have literally left. Competition still happens.
Please listen, yeah. They have taken this stuff from us, right? And they are still exporting stuff from us. They're still exporting stuff to us.
So why would not stop trading with the UK completely then?
If we had, and it's not an issue counter, we can actually check this.
If competition matters so much, why just not stop trading?
Because they're happy to sell stuff to us. That's the point. That's how you make money.
But you said, okay, we make money. Why
they make money.
Is that going to change if we join the EU again?
Because we'll be selling more to them. They don't want us to sell more to them. They want us to buy more. They don't want us to sell more. That's the point.
Okay.
That's still going to happen.
There we go. Look, it says at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. He says it about 44 times, I think. About 40 odd times. 45. Yeah, it's literally this. Well, we could do this easier. So, hold up. This is the easy way to do it. This is mentioned one that's here. And then, yeah. Oh, yeah, I told Max I'd do a review of this. Can you do a review or follow-up of your chat? So, yeah. Fair enough, I did it.
It's still going to happen.
How is that happening when services and manufacturers...
Competition.
I was distraught.
Exactly, because they have buyers. They have buyers elsewhere. That's why.
Yes, you're going to get more buyers when you join the...
No, not more buyers,
joins,
please, bro.
The UK will buy more.
You're literally listening to one sentence.
You will have more.
In every
You
sentence.
will have people to buy in your single market.
Sorry, it should be fine. It's fine on my end. When there was a
Have
shortage,
more people enlarging a market is not a bad thing.
when there was a shortage,
This is not an issue.
Bro, it is an issue.
Not an issue.
Competition. It is an issue because they see us as competition.
No, it isn't.
They don't want us in. Oh my! Again, like they.
Who is saying this is a problem? Which name me an EU politician that is saying that this competition issue is a problem?
That's why they mentioned they don't want to give us dynamic alignment. I mean, that's why they mentioned they don't want to give us equivalency dynamic alignment because we are.
So what if Keir Starmer goes and gets dynamic alignment?
Sorry,
I mean, he's not.
What if Keir Starmer goes and gets dynamic alignment?
It's possible he could have got it, but I don't know if that's still on the table because the whole reason the EU offered that was over Northern Ireland. And for the most part, I think they think the Northern Ireland
still an issue. What if they do
It's
that?
not as much of an issue now. I think that issue has mostly been resolved.
I don't think that's on the table because it was there mainly for Northern Ireland. It wasn't there for economic reasons. It was there for political reasons.
Okay, let's say Starmer does this and says, "Hey EU, we would like dynamic alignment because of the issue with Northern Ireland. It's going to be easier for us. It's going to be easy for you. Everyone benefits."
Right.
Why? It's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
It's really not a problem. Because it's not a problem. If we were to rejoin, the French farmers get more people to sell to in the UK.
More competition to deal with. They already have us. You know, they can already sell to the UK pretty easily.
It's not a problem because UK.
Oh, okay, guys. I'm sorry. It says excellent connection.
The EU market is big enough
to
be able to
French
accept the
consumers,
UK.
right, who have had to replace British goods with other countries' goods.
You are doing a reverse Brexit argument.
I'm
you know
not
that.
doing a reverse Brexit argument. I'm literally not. You're using the we need them more than they need us.
Really? No, I'm not. I'm saying that we need the EU. We need to be in the EU. You are saying that we don't need the EU.
No, I'm saying they don't need us. I'm telling you, they don't need us. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Because they have us. They are exporting. No, I'm saying, if anything, I'm using the opposite of the Brexit argument. They said they need us more than we need them. I'm telling you, they don't need us. I'm telling you that.
They would be fine if we joined because it's as you said, competition is not an issue.
Oh, that's some
strange
issues.
People to sell to. Why is having more people to sell to and being able to make more money an issue?
They have us to sell to. They are selling to us.
It's not. We're going around in circles now because I keep on telling you that this is just not an issue. That expanding a market is not going to be an issue for business.
It's cool. Let's let in Russia then. Let in China, might as well. You know, big population, lots of money. Let in India as well.
And companies because they're going to have more people to sell to.
You
are not making a clear. You're not saying anything why that's an issue.
Have they stopped selling to us?
No.
Okay, so
man, it's not great. Since I think it might be me because I'm on the Wi-Fi. When I switched from the Ethernet to the Wi-Fi, it was a problem. So I think you do get some buffering a little bit. I think probably need to change my settings somewhere. But I'm just not sure what to change.
Yeah, we are selling to them as well.
Okay, are they selling more to us or less than us than they were in previous years?
Probably more to us than we were before.
Are we selling more to them or less than them in previous years?
Probably going to end up being less.
Okay, so they're selling to us still. Right, they're still making money from us. We're making less money from them. All of the shellfish that we used to export to the EU, that's been taken over by Croatian fishermen. So they haven't lost that much. So again, what have they lost from this?
It's
not an issue.
We would join the market.
Right.
They would have a larger market to sell to.
They already have that.
Still be able to sell to. They would just be less
large market to sell to.
You've already admitted that once this paperwork kicks in, we've already seen what happens when it comes in on the UK side. It's probably going to happen on the EU side as well.
I mean, it's already happened. The EU implemented it first.
EU companies are going to say, "Oh, great, tariff-free access."
Is the buffering that bad?
To the UK, come on in.
Or they could say the UK's too much for pain to sell. We're going to go elsewhere, which is literally what they have done through this whole thing.
Yeah,
they've
because
sold to other countries.
Of the extra paperwork problems.
One of the sausage makers in Germany, they used to import used to get their pork from the UK, right? Do you know what they did? They bought the pork from Danish farmers.
Easy to get pork from elsewhere.
Yeah, from Denmark, right? So they haven't struggled without us, not that much. And that was.
But they could sell sausages to the UK. That sausage maker is not going to say no to selling more sausages in the UK. And again, this is not an issue.
But again, they've already found customers. Like, if they can expand, I'm sure they'll think it's great. But they're going to be very indifferent to us joining because, again, they already sell stuff to us. And if it's the case that the UK is a lock-off market and it's not worth their time, they're going to say, fine, we'll look elsewhere.
Which they have done.
Got a big market. Do you
know I've switched to my phone Wi-Fi. Is it working now? I can't tell whatsoever.
should be okay now. So annoying. Okay, is it back? Oh, it was back and then it's gone. Okay, how's it looking now, guys? Sorry about that. It's just the Wi-Fi cuts out sometimes. Cool, we'll give it a minute then. Okay, it's back again. Sorry, guys. I can't. There's nothing I can do with the Wi-Fi. Like, it should be fine, but do you know? I've got a booster. I need to connect it. I need to actually set that up. I'm gonna do that. It's one of the reasons why I stopped live streaming. Can't decide. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. It should be fine now, I think. At the moment, right now, this is what's employing people. Just gonna open the window quickly. And they think, look, we let the UK join. They might start producing more cars. We don't really want that. We're happy to sell our cars to them. We don't want to buy any cars from them. Done deal. That's one of the reasons why Spain wanted the tariff exemption to stay. Not because they thought the UK is going to sell more cars to us. It's because they're selling cars to the UK and they don't want to face the tariff. That's it. But have they pushed for it that hard? Not really. They said, we don't want it. They're not saying, no, fuck no, EU, stop doing this shit. That's it. Well, they're indifferent towards us because they're still selling stuff to us. We're not a big dog. We're not the United States. We are a big player.
I know we're not. I'm not making an argument. We are a very middling economy.
Exactly. So again, like,
why are they going to say no to be able to sell more stuff to the UK?
They're already selling it.
But there will be no tariffs. That's a benefit. That is a
There's
massive
no tariffs.
I
don't get why he doesn't know what tariffs are. Like, it's kind of maddening at this point. Like, he said it about 50 times now, and I've corrected him each time.
True.
It is true, but are we going to stop buying food from the EU? Is that what's going to happen?
No, we're not going to stop buying stuff from the EU.
So who's going to pay the cost? The consumer. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference to trade for them.
Yeah, it won't make a difference. If we were to rejoin, it's not going to make an issue. We are still probably, if anything, trade will probably increase between the two
import
countries.
checks coming in, do you think we're going to stop buying food from the EU?
No, it's going to make things more difficult.
But are we going to keep buying food from them?
Yeah, but it will be more difficult, and it will probably
cost
more.
From them?
Yeah, and it will cost more because of the checks. It's going to be increased because of the cost and checks.
And who's going to be paying for that?
Eventually, that's going to be sort of passed on to the end consumer.
But
if you are a company and you remove those tariffs, well, all of a sudden, now you can sell more products into the UK because now you don't have to...
We might be making similar things to what they're making. That's one of the reasons
we do now.
What?
Shock horror.
What?
We do now in many ways.
But again, we face the barriers. Like, that's the point.
Yeah, and why, if we remove these barriers, nothing's going to change?
Because
it's not an issue. It's really not an issue.
Bro, I'm not going to lie yet. You know, like, this has been really just wow, because again, like, if we make similar products to what these companies are making and we can export more into the EU, we're competing with that company. That's all it is. It's not hard. It's basic.
It's
basic. It's very basic.
In Denmark and there's a company in Germany that make the same products, they have issues of competition, right?
Yeah, okay.
Why are these companies not screaming?
I think they're going to say, look, big man, we don't want that third country
not going to sell them because they
it's buffering bad guys. Well. I can see it on my end as well. We're going to be competing with these companies. Recommend stream bit rate. Sorry guys, it's 50 not an issue.
Happens in a market.
But do you think they want added competition? That's the question.
Do you not think competition happened when we're in the EU?
I will look at the settings, guys, I promise.
No, you are saying competition did not happen when we're in the EU. Are you saying that? That is economically illiterate to say that competition did not happen.
You've just knocked down a very beautiful straw man.
No, you are saying that it's somehow that if we were to rejoin the EU, these companies are going to say, oh no, all this competition...
That's literally not what I've said. That is literally not what I've said.
That is what you are saying. That is what you are saying. I'm listening to you now.
What I'm saying to you is they're not going to be happy about it, and they might lobby their governments. The countries that are involved in this stuff, they might look at it and say, look, the UK is going to sell these things. We make these things. We might not want the UK in because we've picked up the business from what they have left. That's the difference. They're already
and then
selling
they
to
all
us.
the UK to sell into.
They might not want... They've already got us to sell into.
Yes, but they've got the tariff barriers to cost, which increase.
There's no tariff barriers. The tariff barriers?
Customers. Yeah.
What tariff barriers?
The cost of the paperwork, the cost of the
That's non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers. Is that what you're saying? Non-tariff barriers. That's customs.
Red tape is a tariff barrier.
No, customs fees are not tariff barriers. They're non-tariff barriers. It's not
Yes,
a tariff.
they are. Customs fees are.
This guy literally doesn't understand the basic customs. He needs to follow Dr. Anna Jawazeska on Twitter. She would explain it to him. Maybe not, actually, because this man's an idiot.
Absolute tariff barrier.
Customs fees are a tariff barrier. Lord have mercy. These are non-tariff barriers because they're not a tariff. It's a barrier that's not a tariff.
That was what businesses would count as. If they pay customs fees, that is a cost to them. That is a cost to the business.
And that's a tariff barrier. Is that what you're saying?
I don't get what's going on here. It's like I'm not even doing anything that intensive.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you're saying, the UK can rejoin the single market. I've said that's not true, and I've cited evidence to that effect. You've said.
Well, no, you haven't. I've said who's saying no. Who's saying no? Who in the EU saying no?
To say, like, countries have tried to join the single market.
You're just saying they're not paying attention to us. If we said we wanted to rejoin the EU, you don't think the EU would probably have to give that serious consideration? If we said we wanted to join the EU, you don't think they'd have to say,
no,
we have to sort of pay attention to the UK now?
I don't think so.
The Copenhagen criteria, make the necessary political changes, and we can discuss.
No, that would be negotiations. That would take place in the negotiations.
So you're saying the Copenhagen criteria is negotiable?
Yeah.
Okay. So when are you disregarding what Dr. Svendrup said when he said about Central and Eastern European countries asked if they could join the EEA first? The EFTA countries didn't want them to do that, and they didn't do that. Are you disregarding what Svendrup has said, or? And
they ended up joining the European Union.
Yeah, they didn't join the single market via an expansion. They joined the EU instead.
Yeah.
That's literally what he's saying. So you're saying we can join the single market. Svendrup has said,
well, no, I'm
the UK
saying
can't
that
do that.
probably asking might be a fair ask to the EU at some point.
It's literally what the Central European countries did. They asked and they didn't get it.
But I would prefer full membership.
Okay, so we asked the EU. EFTA countries have already said no.
No, they haven't. Norway would not say no.
Norway will not say no. You've got no evidence that. I've already shown you that they're not happy with us joining EFTA. You've literally cited a book from 2016. I've cited evidence from 2020.
Why has that changed?
Because it's outdated. How many prime ministers have Norway had since then?
No.
How many prime ministers have Norway had since then?
Citing a book from 2016, 2020. Don't care about that.
How many prime ministers have Norway had since then?
2, I think.
It's more than 2. I believe it's more than 2. So do you not think Norway's position has changed on that since their prime minister's changed?
I think it would be more than fine to have as an EFTA.
Massive political change in Europe.
I think it would be fine to have an EFTA because it would give them more power to negotiate with the EU.
When apparently Erna Solberg was clearly
Especially
horrified when
when
Boris Johnson suggested
different economies.
EFTA, that doesn't change your mind on that. She doesn't want us to join EFTA. Is that fine? When the other EU member states were reluctant for us to join the single market, especially if we want to join the customs union as well. Are you happy with that? I guess that's not an issue as well.
I think if the UK had a serious Brexit position of we don't want to be part of the EU politically, we just want to be part of it economically, I think the EU would have been fine with that.
I think
they would have been fine
we are where we are.
Market.
We are where we are. I can't remember the English saying it for it. That was a good one, but we are where we are. We didn't have a serious We didn't have serious anything back then. The Labour Party was a bit of a joke. The Tory Party was, not just a clown; it was the entire circus.
So we can't improve anything with the EU. Rejoining is pointless then.
I've never said that.
It sounds like it.
So again, he doesn't understand reality. He doesn't understand that reality is one thing, and doomerism is another thing. But he associates the two together.
I've talked about the Copenhagen criteria. I've talked about all of the things the UK will have to do to get.
I think that's all negotiable.
You could think it's negotiable. I don't
really
think
okay for Denmark to accept the euro then.
Again, Denmark was already a member state, and
before the euro,
the Copenhagen criteria, and you don't want any more opt-outs, and you've got people like Bostad saying that now we've got to sort of look around companies and start them getting to join these things.
Is he in charge of a member state?
Are you really going to sort of force Denmark into the euro?
Again, it's an existing member state.
Are you going to force Romania into the euro as well?
Yeah, Moldy is pretty bad here.
I believe that Romania joined more recently. I think they're going to try and get them to do that. But again, it's more difficult when they become a member state. That's why they're going to try and enforce it, I think, more earlier on, especially with the UK being the size that we are. But again, the Copenhagen criteria, stable political institution, guarantee of human rights, rule of law, economic stability, robust market rules. Looking a bit sus, especially if we're going to deregulate Solvency II, which I think Rachel Reeves has talked about.
Yes, she has, yeah.
Again, not really that great.
Yeah, do an EU alignment bill. Not an issue.
An EU alignment bill.
So
Labour are going to do an EU alignment bill on services.
If we were to rejoin the EU, we would just go, okay, let's do an EU alignment bill. Done.
Again, we're going to have to do that, I think, much earlier on than before we join. We'd have to do that before we would gain ascension, because we'd have to make sure our rules are there.
Yeah, you'd have to go through that because that'd be part of the negotiation process, and that stuff we'd have to do to rejoin.
Again, kind of going back to I think the key point, which is,
I mean, again, if we deregulate only, if we deregulate massively, it's going to take us out of the running completely.
Was horrified of the idea of Boris Johnson gate crashing after. That'd be the UK joining after. They've said previously
they also said that it wasn't sort of suitable for what the UK was asking or what it seemed to want at the time.
Sorry?
The full quote of that is she said that she didn't necessarily understand that it would be sort of suitable for what the UK was asking for at the time.
That's what Erna Solberg said at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was not a response to UK just joining that. That was the Norway 2 plus deal that was being talked about.
Okay, and with kind of EFTA countries being reluctant for us to join the single market, especially if we're going to join the customs union, is that
I think we'll be fine. It's not an issue. I think they would let us join. So, there is no serious argument from any of these
20 minutes left
of this. We wanted to join. They would not say no.
Do you know when de Gaulle stopped us joining the precursor to the EU, right? What was his argument against it?
The whole argument was that the UK was a bad sort of economy, that it wasn't really sort of going to sort of play by the rules, that it would sort of destroy Europe internally. It sort of wanted sort of more control than it should have.
He was spitting facts.
Eventually, what happened was de Gaulle became a very lone voice in the wilderness, and people were very frustrated by not letting by other people in Europe were not frustrated by his reluctance to let the UK join. It was like I say, once he died, France changed its tune. Even French politicians were like, there is no reason not to let the UK join de Gaulle.
Again, like, all it takes is one politician to say no. That's one of the key problems with, especially with your single market argument.
So it can't be negotiated, and there can't be any negotiations or anything like that. That's just pointless. Once there's no, and that's it. All over.
You're acting like I'm a Brexiteer here when I voted Remain. And
you're making a lot of very similar arguments.
Not really. I think my key argument is that we need the EU way more than they need us, so they're going to look at it from that angle, which is literally what I've said.
Why are they not going to allow us to rejoin then? Competition.
So again, there's the competition angle. There's the fact that we're
not. Yeah, that's not an issue. It's not an issue. That's not an issue if they allow us to.
Does the majority of people in Britain want to join the EU? That's a problem.
The UK would have been very different politically by that point.
Are we going to accept the 4 freedoms? That's going to be another problem. The fact
you look at the polls now, people are
very unstable. I mean, polls can change. That's going to be another
problem.
The
polls now are we would accept freedom of movement.
And again, has there been much campaigning on that? Because again, polls can change, especially when you've got Nigel Farage.
Well,
saying,
you've got the EU movement. There's a lot of pro-EU movements out there that are campaigning hard on that right now. So you're saying what they're doing is pointless?
No, I've never said campaign is pointless. Look, this is, and I'll make it very clear. This is what you said to me. You asked me, what are my feats and achievements, right? And I said, I make YouTube videos. I'm happy with that. You said, my feats and achievements are, I'm campaigning, right? And I said, have you got PR? You said, no. And then I said, okay, great feat and achievement. And then you've somehow flipped it as me saying campaigning is stupid. I want to make it very clear on the record. I think campaigning is good.
Okay, good, fine.
Good. I've literally said that, I think, about 4 times there. And I don't know, maybe because my mic
you are being incredibly negative. I don't really see...
He doesn't... I've met people like this before who don't like negativity. It ruins their vibe and stuff like that. But they don't understand what reality is.
I'm being very realistic. I'm being very realistic in a lot of the analysis I've given here. I'm not sure.
I don't think you are. I don't think you're relying on the fact that I don't think Norway would say no, because there's no evidence that they would say no.
Again, because Norway has said no. Again, Erna Solberg didn't want us in.
Norway would not say no.
She was horrified. She was horrified at it.
Yeah, and that was with regards to Norway Plus.
So what do you think Norway Plus is?
We're not putting forward Norway Plus.
What is Norway Plus? Can you explain
Norway Plus would essentially be joining... The UK would join the Single Market Customs Union, but it would also have another separate customs union to itself, so that it could do things and deals with, like, Canada.
Okay. And
that was deemed impossible because you cannot be a member of 2 customs unions simultaneously.
So right now, what the UK wants to... What you're saying is, for the UK to join the Single Market and Customs Union, who is going to have the enforcement mechanism for that when if the UK breaks the rules or if there's any disputes?
That would be the EU and the EU court that they have.
Do you know who oversees disputes between the EU and the EFTA countries?
That would be the EU court, I believe.
It's the EFTA courts. They have to have their own court about enforcement and mechanisms and things like that. So again, there would have to be another kind of mechanism for that. Sorry?
Because now that we've got to follow their rules and regulations in there, why are Norway going to say no? I think you're being very doomer and negative about it.
Again, like I've literally made this point before. They are exporting to us fine. They don't want to import more. That's the point. You know, countries generally want to export more and import less.
Competition is not an issue.
But
as I said, competition is not an issue. Enlarging your market is not an issue.
So, like, you think these countries...
If you are a business and you can sell more to more people, are you going to not do that?
If you're a business who has to compete with more if you're a business that predominantly has to deal with certain goods and you allow a country in that manufactures those goods and they have multiple exports of those goods, you will have to compete with those goods. Are they going to be happy about that?
The exact same thing. Competition happens now with right in the single market. You are basically saying that there should be no single market because of
literally, again, not what I've said. These countries, and look at what the UK produces. No, again, you strawman me. I think this is the third time.
I think that competition is such an issue.
I'm saying, are you saying competition is no issue whatsoever?
Yeah, I'm saying that competition will not be an issue.
Yeah, like I was trying to give him a ridiculous argument, and he took it.
If we rejoin.
So why is the EU such a protectionist bloc if competition is so great? Why do they have such high tariffs for countries not inside the EU? Not inside the single market.
They want people inside their market for Europe to sort of trade within itself.
And they also want to protect their domestic industries, right? They want to protect their domestic industries.
Yes.
Okay, so what happens when you add much more competition?
Domestic industry within the single market.
Again, they're going to look at us as a third country. Look, I'm talking about the process.
It's really not an issue.
If we're looking at the process to join, right? And they're looking at us saying, look, this is what the UK strengths are, right? These are the things they export. Do you not think they're going to be like, okay, the UK exports these things, a lot of agricultural goods and whatever, right? We produce a lot of agricultural goods. We are now going to have to compete with those exporters.
There's a heck of a lot more agricultural goods than we do.
Say again?
The EU produces as a whole a lot of agricultural goods than we do.
Sure, and they're going to have to compete with what we export.
Is that not competition within the internal market?
Again, like, they're adding a third country in. This is the point. Like, they're adding an extra competitor in. They're going to have to look at the strengths of us as a competitor. That's the main point.
That is not
my key point being is that they have us as an export market. They don't want us to export more.
And at the moment, you've got the rules and checks coming in, which are going to act as obstacles and barriers.
Again, that's the key question mark, because again, these EU companies can say the UK is not worth it for us to sell to. We will look elsewhere, which is what they've already been doing. They've already seen the UK as not being worth it to sell to.
So they would not sell to the UK if we rejoin them.
They probably will sell to us, but again, it's not on their radar. It's not that big a deal. They don't care. That's why if the UK rejoin, they might see us as competition, but they might not care.
It's just it's quite painful, isn't it? I don't know how I subjected myself through this. I don't know how I subjected you guys to this either.
It's not an issue.
It's not an issue. Okay, cool. Not an issue. Copenhagen criteria, not an issue. Joining the euro, not an issue. Making political changes, not an issue. None of these things are an issue. So what are issues then? Which ones are issues?
It's just the negotiations itself, and it depends what happens in those negotiations. The UK is probably going to change within the next 10 years. Like I say, we might have PR within the next 10 years.
I've not said that. I don't think we'll have PR in the next 10 years.
We might do.
Based on what?
You don't know. But again, if we were serious and said, hey, EU, we want to rejoin, they would have to take us seriously. Competition is not going to be an issue.
I don't think they would have to take us that seriously, I'll be honest.
Otherwise, why have a single market and be very protectionist of it if you're worried about competition? When you can expand that market, include the UK, and you would have a lot more customers to sell to within the UK.
They already have those customers. That's the point. They already have
tariff barriers now that sort of are going to come
tariff barriers?
More.
These are non-tariff barriers for a start. And we still don't know what the EU's reaction is going to be to them.
Do you think that's not an issue?
It is an issue, yeah, but I don't know how they're going to react to it. They might look elsewhere. They might look at trying to trade elsewhere. Or I don't know
what happened to the UK when barriers came in for
how
us.
How big is the EU's market? How big is the EU's market? How many people in the EU do you think?
It's
say the EU and then you've got EFTA as well,
really
right?
big.
So I think it's like 500 something million, right? How big is the UK's market? 65.
65.
So you've got a market of hundreds of more millions of people you can sell to potentially.
And you get an extra 55 million people to sell to?
Again, but we're not on the radar. That's the point. You're saying, oh, this is great. You can have an additional amount. But again, they don't care. What?
We would be if we were serious about rejoining.
Are we serious? No. Will we be serious? Maybe at some point, but I don't think we are. And the fundamental point is, again, they're looking at new members, not old members.
Right. Well, Yeah, we've had this conversation now for an hour, and I'm bored. So
I'd be, I'm pretty bored as well, to be fair, watching this, because this guy doesn't get it. I mean, that's fine, but like again, like it doesn't take from reality.
it doesn't, because it doesn't reflect reality of what might happen in the future, of what might change in the future, of what countries might do. Norway is not going to say no if we were serious about sort of rejoining their thing, because it would give them a lot more power and say when it came to negotiating.
My sources that I made it the fuck up.
Different.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so apparently Norway in the past saying no, that's not an issue. Okay, fine.
Yeah, because that was to Norway Plus that we were trying to sell. That was one of the alternatives being pushed to Theresa May's Chequers deal.
No, I mean, I think they specifically talked about us joining EFTA. They've said no. Like, that's EFTA alone. That's not about double customs union or anything like that. That's EFTA alone. That's just the single market alone.
That is not an issue. The whole idea again of Norway saying no, not an issue. And again, there is a lot of mutual like between the UK and Norway.
That's fine. Countries, we like each other.
Yeah,
okay, that's fine. But again, like,
it's literally on Wikipedia.
It doesn't mean they're gonna.
Right, look, yeah. If you guys want a source on this, I'm just thinking about it now, right? So some Norwegian politicians ruled out admitting the UK into EFTA. So again, what he's saying isn't true. So EFTA countries wary of UK's interest. I mean, this is all there. It's all public knowledge at the time. You know, I wonder when this Wikipedia article was written on this. Let's.
Gonna let us join EFTA and crash their market.
Really? Why did Japan let us join the Pacific Partnership?
Or the CPTPP.
Yeah.
Because they saw it as a good chance to export to us. That's why. Potentially increase exports.
No, it's to say no to China. That's the only reason we are in the Pacific Partnership, to say no to China.
Okay. So it's an extra vote to say no to China.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So that's not economically viable as an economic argument. There was other factors at play. If we were to rejoin...
so he's saying political arguments factor into trade.
Are you saying? Wait. Are you saying countries make
more negotiating power when it came to negotiating with the EU?
Are you saying countries? Japan has made a decision based on politics, not economics? Is that what you just said?
Wait.
Hold on. Did you just say Japan added us to the CPTPP?
Negotiations are going to happen.
Did you just? Sorry. Did you just say Japan got us to join the CPTPP or allowed us in, right? Because of political reasons.
Yep.
You can't be serious, because of the fact that any of these EU countries can say no for political reasons. They can see it as playing well in the domestic market. They might not like us in the EU, certain countries. France could do it. France could do it and say, after all of the problems we caused with France over the last couple of years, France can say no, you're not going to join.
The UK is in a vastly different position. It's a vastly different.
He gave me that one. He gave me that one. It's a really bad argument. Literally threw the ball to me. I just got whacked it into the top bins.
EU, attitudes in the EU has changed.
Do you know how much bad will we've caused within the EU?
It's not a lot as you seem to think.
It's pretty bad.
It's not.
It's pretty bad.
Really not.
I think it's pretty bad. It's still pretty bad, to be honest.
Pretty bad.
It's really not. I talked
we
to
almost
a lot
started
of
a
people
fight.
in Europe. It's not.
You talk to people.
Yeah, I've been to the EU Parliament. I've talked.
75 is crazy.
Like, you realise that we almost started a fight with France.
Shadowing EMPs.
What year was
EMPs.
this?
He's been shadowing EMPs, guys.
This was this year.
This year, okay. And do you think when we almost started a fight with France over fish, do you think that fosters a lot of goodwill?
No, but you're not talking about the future of when things would change and we'd be back in the EU.
Do you think countries forget these things?
He just keeps jumping to this point of we're already in the EU. I don't get how.
Again,
do you think countries have forgotten the actions that we've taken over Northern Ireland? How we almost plunged Northern Ireland into chaos?
And they would be very happy to sort of let us rejoin, because that would make the situation in Northern Ireland a lot better.
And we are a trustworthy country, apparently.
And you don't think Ireland's going to want that as well?
Potentially, yes. They've also taken a lot of services from us, and they benefited greatly from that. So it could be no. We've also boosted the chance of Irish reunification greatly.
You also Ireland wouldn't be opposed to sort of selling more services into the EU, into sort of the UK, sorry?
They can still sell services to us now. Literally, the only problem is services going the other way. It's not a cost. No, because we've given them...
We have an equivalency deal with the EU still, I believe, on services.
EU traders...
Again, we're rehashing the same argument.
No, we're not, because you're arguing services.
Oh my God,
there isn't a cost. They can sell services to us, it's not a problem.
Competition is a cost.
My argument isn't just competition. My argument is the politics of it. My argument is they already have us. We're free. Why would
Day
they let
free.
us in when we can export more? That's literally my argument for the most part, and I don't know how you've managed
Why
to
would they
strawman
not
that.
let us in when we can just expand
Because
the
they
market and
already
export
have
more
us.
now?
They don't want us to be an export. They don't want us to export more. That's all it is. Because it's for they can take that market over.
They wouldn't say no to that. Again, that's not the whole competition is not an
Carney,
argument.
yeah. I think Carney's going to go big into that anti-American stuff, to be honest. That's what I'm saying. You could do it for political reasons.
Okay, all right. I think I'm done. I'm done here.
I'm done as well.
I think I'm good.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Yeah, I take
all
my
right, cheers,
bullets.
bro. Do I just leave studio and it will end this conversation? Okay, cool.
And the funniest thing is that guy was, he started talking mad shit about me after as well.
I'm still knocked out of the sound. I'm really sorry about the sound, guys. I don't know what's happened to that. I'll be honest.
In the mixer, it looked fine, but it wasn't.
It's a bit of a piss take. Was it that bad? Sorry if it was that bad.
It's pretty bad.
I could download it, put it on my channel, and just what do you call it? Hit it with the thing.
I did not do that.
Guys, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I'm really sorry about that. I need
Eggs galore.
Mic is low. Okay. Look, fucking hell, guys. I don't know what to say. I mean, goddamn. I think that was the most painful experience I've had on this. I don't know if we've even say I've smoked the pack, guys. I don't know. Like,
I feel like I have smoked the pack.
I don't know what to say. Bear with me, guys. What I'll do for you guys is just bear with me one sec. I'm gonna hit share. Like, we're just gonna ask. Okay, one sec. What I'm gonna do is where's the invite link? Okay, the link.
It's me adding people to Discord. The Discord server.
I'll jump in the Discord call. That was just bad, guys. Maybe next time we'll get a moderator. I don't know. That was
definitely
absolutely painful. That was. Oh, my days. He didn't know. He's still streaming. Fair enough. Some guy, Duke Vengeance, saying he's a hater. Let's see. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I can see some. There's some haters in the chat, honestly. But what's it called? Give me 5 minutes, guys. Sorry, I don't know if I missed any super chats. I apologize for that. DeGaulle was right. Yeah, Roshin, you are right about that. Is a non-issue? The Brexit means Brexit. I don't know if I missed any more. Thank you guys for everything. Like I said, my audience. I don't care if he says all I do is sit at home and make YouTube videos. Like my audience means the world to me. This channel means the world to me. Like this is. This channel here, like this is my world, honestly, for the most part. This is my legacy. This is what I'll leave behind. And if he's gonna belittle that, then whatever. But yeah, he's part of a movement to get PR. Where's his feats? What's his achievements? He ain't got zero. Honestly, so yeah, we'll leave it at that. Guys, I want to end the stream. A bit depressed because I think at least with Phil I made some headway. With this guy, I didn't make much. And sometimes you want to go in. It's okay. Fuck, it's gonna be a joke on the channel now.
Yeah, it's not an issue. It has become a joke on the channel. I think it's pretty much ended it here.
Yeah, I don't know, gang. I don't know. That was a bit depressing.
So kind of thinking back on it, I was a lot more patient with him than I remember being. So there was that. I think there was a couple of areas I could have done better. I think, yeah, honestly, mate, if I could go full time with YouTube, that's a win. Like, that's a huge win. So I think it's fine. Like, some of my friends do ask me if I want to go in politics. I don't really want to go into politics, because it's nasty work, bro. It changes people. I've seen people get middle management roles and it changed people. So like for me to get into the game is just, I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen, but it'll be a while. It'll be a while away, but I think I'm happy. I think in reality, I think my legacy is still greater than his, even now. Some people just can't accept the truth. Yeah, they can't. But I think my legacy right now is greater than his. I'll be honest, because my channel, the content, the videos I put out, especially when I had more time. Round 2, are you crazy? I'll run it. I'll run it back. If he wants to run it, I'll run it back. But you know, there'll have to be a debate moderator. But I'll, you know what I mean? I'll you know, I'll show you if I run it back, right, it's gonna look like this. It's gonna look like this. If we run it back, right, this is gonna be the thumbnail. And I'll put a picture of my logo above the Flash's face here. That's what it's gonna look like. So trust me, he wouldn't debate me. Of course he wouldn't. What, debating me is a stupid idea. It genuinely is dumb. Like I said, you know, the only person who's probably better than me in the space. Oh, that's weird. What's that? The only person better than me in the space is probably the person who was the other YouTuber in the stream for a bit. That's about it. And anyone else, it's a long day for them. That's it. So yeah, it's a long day for them. They ain't got it. So yeah. Sorry, I'm just replying to someone. So yeah, man, I'm telling you guys, like, it's just over. Bowler Hat Man gonna be on Sunday? Nah. I would not, if he's on the Sunday race. I would not be there. So yeah, at least with Phil, right? At least he's discussed some of this stuff with the disabilities and things. His videos were poor, but at least he's done it. And Bowler Hat Man's talking about, well, you know, it does make sense to cut welfare in exchange for increasing defence. To be fair, Casper, I've got to go as well. It's like 10:40. I'm gonna go eat something, and then yeah, I'll be a bit more active. I think I'm just trying to figure things out. I've got the desire again, I think, to get back to doing videos. So I'll catch you guys. I'll catch you guys real soon. He was a bit whiny after No Justice did a review of her debate with, yeah. Well, you know, he said it wasn't a debate, but with her, but you know, it's, you know, there's only 2 more people on the list. 2 more people on the list I want to get. I want Graham and I want Tanti next. They're the two I want to get. And at some point, I'm hoping I can get Graham. With the other one, I'm not gonna push for. But yeah, thank you, Alistair, for the super chats and the memberships as well. Thanks all of you, but for sticking through that. It's about 2 hours of hell, to be honest with you. And I'll catch you guys. Almost 2 hours. 7, 8, 9. No, about 3 hours of hell, guys. I'll catch you guys real soon. Promise. Bye bye.